Chapter 784. This has nothing to do with the Awakening God Tower. I don't care. You can do whatever you want after you leave the tower, the middle-aged manager said calmly. Sir, that's not appropriate. A woman's voice came from outside the Awakening of the Gods Tower. Her voice sounded a little angry. A moment later, a woman in a blue warrior's outfit walked in with her hands behind her back. She had a cold expression on her face. Miss, why are you here? The fat second manager quickly went up and greeted her respectfully. I happened to pass by and heard someone outside saying that the Awakening God Tower is bullying the Yun family. How could I not come and take a look? The woman didn't even look at the second manager as she spoke. The woman who just came in looked like a young girl, but her posture was generous and calm. She also had the temperament of an expert. Needless to say, everyone knew that she was the daughter of a wealthy family. When she walked into the room and stood still, Xiao Lingyu saw that she was holding a leather whip that was coiled into a circle behind her back. When she saw the leather whip, Xiao Lingyu subconsciously felt that this woman had some violent tendencies. The Yun family's manager may be a little disappointing, but we can train him ourselves. Lord Lu, you don't have to worry about it. As for these cultivators who just ascended, they clearly said that they wanted to become a member of the Yun family. Now that they've woken up, they've been deceived by despicable people and want to go back on their word. The Yun family will never allow this, the eldest daughter of the Yun family said firmly. Woman, why are you so unreasonable? We've already said that we'll return everything that the Yun family has done for us. We just ascended and won't be of much use to the Yun family. Why do you have to force us? Jiang Lanchang said angrily. To be honest, it's not a big deal, but the Yun family has worked hard in this gourd city for many years. We have our own dignity. How can we allow you to play with us like this? The eldest daughter of the Yun family replied. For some prestigious families, face and dignity were often more important than their lives. Tisk, isn't it just for face? Is it that honorable to squabble with weaklings like us who just ascended? Don't tell me that the Yun family is constantly increasing its strength just to show off in front of us newcomers? Jiang Lanchang's mouth was still very sharp, and her words were filled with sarcasm and ridicule. If we can't even deal with you, how can the Yun family establish itself in Gourd City? If even you so-called newcomers can casually trample on my Yun family's dignity, who will give my Yun family any face in the future? Yun family's eldest miss also spoke with conviction. I don't care about your Yun family's face or what's inside. I just want eldest young miss to understand one thing. Your Yun family wants face, and our Spirit Awakening Tower also wants face. You guys caused trouble here and even attacked our Spirit Awakening Tower's Spirit Awakening Tower. That's because you guys attacked our Spirit Awakening Tower first. Seeing as how the Yun family and our Awakening God Tower have been cooperating well for so many years, I won't go to the City Lord's mansion to speak. Eldest miss, you should bring your second steward outside to argue. Our Spirit Awakening Tower still needs to do business, so we won't entertain eldest Mississippi. The middle-aged steward waved his hand impatiently. Yun family's eldest miss glared angrily. Blue veins appeared on the back of her hands that gripped the whip. However, a moment later, those blue veins were covered by her smooth, white skin. She smiled faintly and said, Since Sir mentioned the City Lord's mansion, then my Yun family will go to the City Lord's mansion to argue. Let's go. Yun family's eldest miss led the second steward out of the Spirit Awakening Tower. The middle-aged steward leisurely returned upstairs. Judging from his expression, he seemed to be certain that even Yun family's eldest miss wouldn't dare to make a big fuss in the Spirit Awakening Tower. Why are you leaving just like that? You don't even want the yang crystals? Jiang Lanchang said with a smile. Don't be happy too early. This matter isn't over yet, Qing Xian said with a frown. Didn't you hear her say that the Yun family is going to the City Lord's mansion to seek redress? Yueru's expression was somewhat disdainful. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. What's there to be afraid of? Miaoing said even more directly. Xiaoling felt a headache coming on. His wives were all prideful. Apart from himself, they wouldn't submit to anyone else. Even if the heavens wanted to make things difficult for them, they would still dare to rush up and poke a big hole in the heavens. In fact, Xiaoling also knew that the reason why they were so fearless was because of their firm belief in him. They believed that even if the heavens collapsed, their husband would be able to support them in a safe corner. The Yun family obviously wouldn't let this matter go. With Xiaoling's current strength, he simply couldn't face them. However, since he was able to find his friends and family in such a short time after ascending, it was worth it even if he offended the Yun family. But now, he didn't have the Primal Chaos Manual or the Demon Sealing Pagoda. How was he going to arrange for his friends and family? Even if he allowed them to stay by his side, the Dingmao room that he owned wouldn't be able to fit so many people. Furthermore, the Dingmao room was a place where the Awakening God Tower did business. He definitely wouldn't allow all of the Awakening God Tower's friends and family to squeeze in. Just as Xiaoling was in a dilemma, Meiling also came down from upstairs. He patted Xiaoling's shoulder and said, "I have a residence in the city. Although it's not big, it's still a place to stay. Brother Xiao, if you don't mind, you can arrange for everyone to stay there first." Fellow Taoist Meiling is really considerate. I was worried about this matter, and you came to help me in my hour of need, Xiaoling said meaningfully. Brother Xiao, please don't misunderstand. Lord Steward informed me and asked me to come down and help. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known that there was such a matter downstairs, Meiling explained. Then, thank you very much, Lord Steward and Meiling. Xiaoling cupped his fists and thanked them. It's not a big deal. Brother Xiao, you don't have to be so courteous. Let's go. I'll bring you over to take a look, Meiling said generously. Walking on the streets of Gourd City, Meiling whispered to Xiaoling, "You were introduced by me. If you cause trouble, I'll be in trouble too. Brother Xiao, you have to be careful when you're on Gourd Island in the future. Don't offend people that you shouldn't offend or can't afford to offend. The Awakening God Tower's Awakening God Tower's Awakening God Tower has more freedom. The tower doesn't give us many restrictions, but similarly, if anything happens outside the tower, the Awakening God Tower won't interfere. At most, they'll find another person to replace you." "Thank you for your reminder, Brother Me," Xiaoling nodded sincerely. Xiaoling could guess that the reason the Lord Steward let Meiling come down from the third floor was probably because he was introduced to the Awakening God Tower by Meiling. There shouldn't be any other deeper intentions. As for the Yun clan saying that they want to go to the City Lord's mansion, I don't think they're that stupid. There's a strict ban on private fights in the city. Just now, in the Awakening God Tower, it was their second steward who attacked you first. They violated the ban first. Even if their clan is big, the City Lord's mansion won't be able to help them. They definitely won't go and ask for trouble. Meiling first comforted him, then said worriedly, however, the Yun clan has been in Gourd City for many years. It can be said that they have deep root. There are countless experts in the clan, and they even have a Nirvana realm expert. Not to mention ordinary immortal realm cultivators. Even the other big and small factions on Gourd Island rarely dare to fight with them. The Awakening God Tower isn't afraid of the Yun clan looking for trouble. They don't have the guts, but Brother Xiao, you have to be careful in the future. Today, Brother Xiao also saw that the Yun clan didn't care much about the ban on fighting in the city. Under Meiling's instructions and guidance, it took less than half an hour for everyone to arrive at a maple forest in the north of the city, just like the Awakening God Tower. This maple forest in the north of the city was actually a residential area. There were many small courtyards here, which were the private residences of the city's long-term residents. The fiery red maple leaves connected together, rising and falling with the wind, like a warm sea of fire. The scenery here isn't bad, Anya said with satisfaction. Let's buy a house here in the future. Jiang Lanchang said. The houses here aren't cheap. Look at the smallest courtyard, which is only 5 or 6 feet wide, but it costs nearly 1,000,000 yang crystals to buy it. And that's only if a cultivator is willing to sell it. Meiling said. It doesn't matter. Our husband is very capable. No matter where he goes, he's always rich. Jiang Lanchang didn't care. Meiling wanted to say that this was the world of immortals, so it was different, but he smiled and didn't dampen the mood. After walking for a while, Meiling led everyone to a small courtyard. The courtyard door seemed to be made of steel, and there was a palm print on it. Meiling pressed his left palm on the palm print, then released his power and chanted an incantation, and the big iron door slowly opened. There were 7 or 8 rooms in the courtyard, which looked like a courtyard house. There was a big tree in the middle, but this tree almost occupied the entire space of the courtyard. Hee, my humble house is a bit shabby. Everyone, please bear with it for a while. Meiling looked at the dissatisfied faces of the women, and said with a dry smile. How many yang crystals is your house worth? Jiang Lanchang asked curiously. It costs 3 million yang crystals to buy it. Meiling replied. Then for a spirit awakening expert like Brother Me, how many years does it take to earn 3 million yang crystals? Jiang Lanchang continued to ask. If it's a normal shift, it would take 5 million years. Meiling paused for a moment before replying. You only earn half a yang crystal a year on average? Jiang Lanchang said in surprise. Meiling was even more embarrassed. For a spirit awakening expert, accumulating wealth was indeed slow, but the advantage was that it was stable. Many cultivators who went out on adventures didn't earn much, and it was very dangerous. As the saying goes, if you always wander in Jianghu, how could you not get killed? However, cultivators in the world of immortals didn't have to worry about their lifespans. The most they had was time. For cultivators who didn't have great ambitions, living a stable life was undoubtedly the best choice. Chapter 785. When everyone went to choose their own rooms, Meiling patted Xiaoling's shoulder and said, Although Brother Xiao has a lot of beauties and enjoys a lot of luck with women, once we reach the world of immortals, Brother Xiao will have a long way to go. Not to mention other things, if Brother Xiao is responsible for the cultivation of so many wives, it will be a huge expense. Just relying on the income from the Awakening God Tower, you won't be able to pay for this expense. If they are willing to stay at their current level and don't want to make progress, Brother Xiao won't need to buy the materials they need to break through. But I think none of these sisters-in-law are willing to be mediocre. Xiaolingyu said with a relaxed expression, After all, we haven't been in the world of immortals for long. The most important thing is to gain a firm foothold first. There's no need to think too much. As the saying goes, when the boat reaches the bridge, everything will be straight. Instead of worrying about the future, it's better to be down to earth and do the things in front of us well first. Meiling's eyes revealed a look of admiration and said, Brother Xiao is indeed an extraordinary person. If I had so many beauties waiting for me to provide for them, I'm afraid I would want to bang my head against the wall and die. Xiaolingyu only smiled. In fact, he was also very troubled in his heart. After all, he came from Earth. In his subconscious mind, he believed that a man should shoulder the burden of a family. He didn't ask for riches and honor, but at least he should let his wife and children live without worries. In the world of immortals, there was no need to worry about food and clothing. But everyone's daily needs for cultivation were actually the same as food and clothing in the secular world. He understood his wives very well. He knew that they were indeed unwilling to be mediocre. They would even more so not let their husband, who had once looked down on the world and killed many people, become a mediocre person. However, rice had to be eaten one bite at a time. Things also had to be done step by step. Rushing for success would often result in failure on the verge of success. Brother Xiao, you can rest assured, The bigger the clan, the more they pay attention to their behavior. Even if the Yun clan still has the intention to make things difficult for you, they definitely won't openly come to this courtyard to look for trouble. Moreover, this courtyard was originally the property of the City Lord's mansion. The City Lord's mansion sold it to us. The City Lord's mansion has long issued a strict order that no cultivator or power is allowed to trespass into the private residence of other cultivators in the city. It is precisely because those who live in these courtyards will receive the protection of the City Lord's mansion that the prices of these courtyards are so high and there are countless cultivators fighting to buy them. After everyone had settled down, Myling patted Xiaolingyu's shoulder and comforted her. "Let's go, we have to return to the Awakening God Tower. You've just become a Spirit Awakening Master, so you can't be half-hearted about your 10 years of duty." Xiaolingyu instructed her wives and friends to stay in the courtyard and recuperate first. She also gave them the jade slips she had purchased before she left with Myling. After he closed the iron door of the courtyard, Myling said, "This courtyard has a formation and restrictions set up by the Rebirth Realm experts of the city governor's estate. Once it's attacked, the city guards will rush over as quickly as possible. Over the years, there have been many cultivators that have attacked the private residences of other cultivators, yet none of them met a good end." "Can they come out from inside?" Xiaolingyu asked. "Regardless of whether it's from the inside or outside, only the owner of the courtyard can open the door," Myling replied. Only then did Xiaolingyu feel at ease. Truthfully speaking, he didn't feel that the Yun clan would go to war and risk offending the city governor's estate to attack this courtyard. He was just worried that his wives and friends would be unable to endure the loneliness and run out on their own. As the saying goes, only with a goal comes motivation. Xiaolingyu had a goal that wasn't too big yet wasn't too small, and it was to give his wives and friends a stable place to stay. A courtyard like the one that Myling possessed was naturally the first choice. After all, Xiaolingyu wasn't a top expert that looked down upon the world now. If he was able to take root under the protection of the city governor's estate, then it would at least be much easier for him. However, just by working at the Awakening God Tower, it was already good enough that he could barely get by. There was no need for him to have extravagant hopes of buying a courtyard. Thus, with motivation, Xiaolingyu still had to think of other ways to make a living. Xiaolingyu could also become a Awakening God expert like Myling, thereby increasing the remuneration he could receive from the Awakening God Tower. However, this wasn't easy. He had to first reach the 7th firmament of Longevity Realm. Myling had advanced to the 7th firmament of Longevity Realm. Furthermore, he had never failed in awakening cultivators. Furthermore, he had always been on good terms with the steward, which was why he was promoted. 10 years wasn't a long time, especially for an immortal realm expert like Xiaolingyu. It was even more so in the blink of an eye. Just as Myling expected, the Yun clan didn't go to the city governor's estate to complain, nor did they go to the courtyard to cause trouble. These 10 years passed very peacefully. Xiaolingyu was almost tired of mechanically awakening other cultivators. With 90 years of rest, Ding Mao's room was also given to other awakening masters. 10 years of work, even if the remuneration was 100 years, was only 20 yang crystals. Previously, Jiang Lanchang had laughed at Myling for only receiving half a yang crystal a year on average. However, Xiaolingyu only received 1/5 of a yang crystal a year. In fact, this treatment was already much better than that of the cultivators who worked as waiters in restaurants or shop. The most important thing was that while awakening other cultivators, he could also slowly improve his own soul realm. This could be considered a special kind of remuneration. Myling had already taken his rest 2 years ago. However, he didn't leave the Awakening God Tower. Instead, he cultivated in his own room. When Xiaolingyu's rest came, he went down to the 3rd floor and headed to the courtyard in the northern part of the city with Xiaolingyu. "What is the fastest way to earn yang crystals? Recommend one," As they walked, Xiaolingyu asked Miling. There are many ways. The fastest way is to go out of the city and rob people, Miling replied. Xiaolingyu frowned. Haha, you must be joking. Miling patted Xiaolingyu's shoulder affectionately and said, Actually, in order to buy this courtyard, I went out a few times before. Although I almost lost my life once, I was lucky. Going out of the city to earn yang crystals really requires good luck. Otherwise, something will happen sooner or later. Moreover, you just offended the Yun clan not long ago. It's better to wait a while before going out. If you are targeted by them, you might be caught before you even leave Gourd Island. Is there no way to avoid their eyes and leave the city? Xiaolingyu asked. It depends on luck. There are many powerful formations and restrictions under Gourd Island. It's the same on the city walls. Whether it's earth escape or flying, it's not easy for immortal realm cultivators to leave the city. However, there are many gates in Gourd Island. The Yun clan won't be watching all the gates at all times. Moreover, you can change your appearance, so it won't be easy for the Yun clan to target you. Actually, we feel that it's very troublesome here. The Yun clan might not take us seriously. Miling's eyes suddenly lit up and said, I have an idea. Even if you are targeted by the Yun clan, they can't do anything to you. Oh? Let's hear it. Xiaolingyu asked curiously. The Yun clan and the Sang clan have always regarded each other as a thorn in their flesh. Every once in a while, they would recruit a group of cultivators to go out to sea to hunt. You can go to the Sang clan to sign up, then follow the Sang clan's group out of the city. This way, the Yun clan won't be able to do anything to you. Although the two clans have hated each other for many years, they have always lived in harmony. They rarely go to war, and even more so, the Yun clan won't risk fighting with the Sang clan just because you are in the Sang clan's group. Miling smiled proudly and said, Going out to sea with the Sang clan, although the majority of the harvest belongs to the Sang clan, not only is the reward not low, it's also very safe. Brother Xiao has just arrived in the world of immortals. In any case, I have nothing to do, so I can accompany Brother Xiao out to sea to earn some yang crystals. To tell you the truth, in order to buy that residence, I borrowed some yang crystals from the steward. It's not good to keep delaying it, so I've already considered going out to sea. How many yang crystals can you earn from going out to sea under normal circumstances? Xiaolingyu nodded and asked. If you're lucky, you can get a few hundred. When Miling saw that Xiaolingyu's expression didn't change, he continued, Many a little makes a mickle. After all, we're not experts, so we have to be patient. Xiaolingyu first followed Miling back to the residence, and spent 3 months with his wife and friends. Then, she went with Miling to the Sang clan's courtyard to sign up. The Sang clan only had one requirement when recruiting people to go out to sea, and that was that they had to be at least at the 5th celestial layer of immortals. However, what surprised Miling and Xiaolingyu was that the Sang clan's third young Miss Sangji was among the cultivators who were going out to sea. What was even more embarrassing was that all the cultivators who came to sign up had to be approved by the third young miss before they could be recruited. When Sangji saw Xiaolingyu and Miling, she circled around them a few times with a mocking expression. Forget it, let's go. Miling felt that there was no hope for the two of them, so he pulled Xiaolingyu and wanted to leave. What, are you two men afraid of going out to sea with me? Sangji's voice slowly traveled over. Weren't you going to reject us? Miling turned around and asked curiously. Why would I reject you? It's rare that you're in my hands, so why would I reject you? You won 200,000 yang crystals from me last time, so I have to win it back, Sangji said confidently as she rubbed her nose. As long as you don't secretly make things difficult for us, Miling said straightforwardly. Don't worry, the Sang clan has always been open and aboveboard. We're not like those despicable people from the Yun clan, Sangji said proudly. Cough cough, the stooped Uncle Tua coughed twice, reminding his third young miss to be careful with her words. After all, this was a common occasion. Myling didn't take it to heart. Although the Sang clan and the Yun clan hadn't had any major conflicts for many years, it was still very common for the two clans to bully each other openly and secretly. What made Myling feel even more at ease was that Sang Ji was going out to sea with the group, and even that Uncle Tual was accompanying them. Chapter 786. There were a total of 32 cultivators in the Sang clan's fleet this time. Apart from Sang Ji and Uncle Tual, there were only 5 true experts from the Sang clan. The rest of the cultivators were all recruited. The group of cultivators left Gourd City through the west gate. Then, everyone leaped into the air and flew towards the south of Gourd Island. After flying for 2 hours, everyone arrived at the southern pier. Sang Ji walked to the shore. With a wave of her sleeve, a black light suddenly flew out. The black light flew towards the surface of the sea. In an instant, it transformed into a large ship that looked like it was made of black iron. Although this large ship did not look as resplendent as the Yun clan's golden ship, it was about the same size. It was about 8,000 feet long and at least 3,000 feet wide. It also looked heavy and sturdy. The large ship was clearly a magic treasure of high quality, but it also had a mast and a sail. The tall and wide sail seemed to be made of iron, and it was actually able to flutter with the wind. On top of it, there was a large Sang character engraved. "Let's board the ship." As Sang Ji spoke, she took the lead and flew towards the large ship. A moment later, she landed on the deck of the large ship. Uncle Tual also flew onto the large ship. Xiao Lingyu, Myling, and the other cultivators followed closely behind. When all the cultivators had boarded the large ship, Sang Ji had already formed a hand seal and sent it into the disc-shaped rudder at the front of the ship. The rudder rotated gently. Then, like an arrow leaving the bow, the large ship cut across the blue sea and sped away. "Wah!" Sang Ji shouted excitedly. Xiao Lingyu and the other crew members had just reached the deck. Before they could steady themselves, the large ship suddenly sped forward. They couldn't help but stagger and bump into each other. Everyone couldn't help but curse in their hearts. Tua Bo stood very steadily, but his old face that was filled with wrinkles also revealed a helpless bitter smile. It was obvious that this was Sang Ji's first time out at sea. She wasn't even familiar with controlling this large ship of hers. The big ship gradually sailed into the depths of the Calabash Bay's inner sea. Islands and smaller ships brushed past the big ship. Sang Ji's driving skills were nothing to be proud of. He always made sudden sharp turns, making everyone dizzy. Even if they grabbed onto something on the boat, it was difficult to stabilize their bodies. Bang! The ship crashed into a small island with a dull thud. The quality of this large ship naturally far surpassed the reefs of the small island. Coupled with its extreme speed, it pierced through the small island like a sharp sword. There wasn't the slightest trace of damage to the hull of the ship, but its forward speed had slowed down slightly. Everyone was complaining incessantly, but Sang Ji was having fun. Uncle Tua could only shake his head. Uncle Tua was strong enough to endure such turbulence. However, the other cultivators all felt their blood boil. Those with weaker cultivations even gradually turned pale. Crashing into the small island wasn't a big deal. In this area of the sea near Calabash Island, there were countless ships of various sizes. Some of them were returning home, while others had just set sail. Sang Ji didn't slow down. Instead, she kept accelerating. Coupled with the fact that this was her first time out at sea, it was inevitable that she would crash into other ships. This black iron ship was huge and sturdy. It was like a giant moving at extreme speed. Regardless of whether it was a head-on collision or a rear-end chase, all the ships that were hit by it were reduced to smithereens. It was almost as if it was running amok. The cultivators on the ships that were smashed were either killed or injured. However, they could only admit that they were unlucky to have been hit by the Sang family's ship. The inner and outer seas of Calabash Bay weren't like Calabash City, where the city lord's office controlled the entire city. On the sea, everyone could only rely on their own abilities. Sangji didn't seem to have any goal in mind. She steered the ship and kept accelerating forward. It was as if she didn't come out to hunt sea beasts, but to have fun. She only wanted to experience the thrill of the ship moving at extreme speed. This ship was moving at full speed. It was much faster than the Yun family's golden ship that Xiaolingyu rode on last time. The Yun family's ship wasn't slow either. It was just that it didn't accelerate as fast as this black iron ship. In only 10 years, the black iron ship had already entered the depths of Calabash Bay's inner seas. They weren't far from the outer seas. Uncle Tua finally couldn't take it anymore. He walked to the ship's helm and said, "Third young miss, we should stop to hunt. If we continue like this, we'll rush out of the inner seas and reach the outer seas." The cultivators on Calabash Island knew that the outer seas of Calabash Bay weren't a place that could be entered as one wished. There were many powerful sea beasts in the outer seas. Moreover, there were many powerful hurricanes that wreaked havoc. There were even some powerful experts from the realm of immortals. It wasn't that the Sang family didn't dare to go to the outer seas. However, every time they went to the outer seas, they had to prepare carefully and bring along many experts from the family. What's the point of going to the inner seas? The inner seas are almost empty. Big Brother said that if we want to have a bigger harvest, we have to go to the outer seas. Although Sangji said this, she still gradually slowed down the ship. After 10 years of practice, her driving skills had improved a lot. The only thing she lacked now was experience in hunting. Third young miss, if you want to have a bigger harvest, this old servant knows of a good place in the inner seas. Uncle Tua said with a smile. That's right. Big Brother also said that Uncle Tua used to be our Sang family's most experienced sea hunter. He definitely knows a lot of good places. Come, take the helm. Third young miss gave Uncle Tua a lot of face. While praising him, she gave up the helm. Third young miss had been at the helm for 10 years. Although she enjoyed it to her heart's content, she was now a bit tired. Otherwise, she wouldn't have given up the helm so easily. There was an iron rule in the Sang family that only direct descendants of the Sang family could steer the ship. However, Uncle Tua was an exception. Not only was he not a direct descendant of the Sang family, he wasn't even a cultivator with the surname Sang. However, he was one of the most trusted cultivators of the Sang family. Uncle Tuo's driving skills were naturally many times better than Sangji's. Under his control, the ship's speed wasn't slow at all, but it was unusually stable. After spending almost 3 months, the large ship sailed into a sea area that was occupied by countless islands under Tuo's control. The fog in this sea was rather heavy, but it didn't restrict their spiritual sense. It only affected their vision slightly. As soon as they entered the sea, they could hear the angry roars of sea beasts. Outside the sea, there were almost no hunting ship. Could this be the Lost Islands? Myling looked around on the deck and said in surprise. Hearing Myling's voice, the crew on the deck all frowned. Most of these crew members were experienced at sea. They seemed to be very afraid of the Lost Islands that Myling spoke of. Everyone began to discuss. Sangji also asked Uncle Tua curiously, "Is this the Lost Islands?" Uncle Tua nodded, saying, "That's right. It is the Lost Islands." Sangji said in surprise, "I heard from Big Brother that the Lost Islands is a sea with no exit. This place seems to be covered by a naturally formed Lost Islands formation. Large ships and cultivators who enter this place will quickly lose their sense of direction. It will be very difficult to find a way out. Why did you bring us here?" Uncle Tua smiled, saying, "Young miss, could it be that you're afraid?" Sangji stared blankly for a moment, then patted her chest, saying, "My Sang clan has never had anyone who is timid and afraid of trouble." After saying this, she said in a low voice, "Although I'm not afraid, we still have to take responsibility for these recruited crew members." Uncle Tua smiled again, saying, "Third young miss, if you want to obtain a rich harvest, you naturally have to take risks. Other places are safe, but they've been plundered countless times. Even if you've been out at sea for 100 years, you won't have much harvest. Third young miss, don't worry. Since I've brought you here, I definitely have the confidence to bring you out. Sangji thought for a moment and didn't say anything else. Is the Lost Islands very dangerous? Xiaolingyu asked Miling in a low voice. Miling said with a bitter face, if I knew we were going to come to the Lost Islands, I definitely wouldn't have come. In the past, I've gone out to sea many times, but only once did I almost lose my life. At that time, our ship almost sailed into the Lost Islands. At that time, the fog in the Lost Maze Islands overflowed and spread hundreds of kilometers around the vast sea. We all thought that we had mistakenly entered the Lost Maze Island. Fortunately, we didn't really enter the Lost Maze Islands and only circled around the periphery. If not for the fog dissipating in time, we might have lost our lives in the mouths of the sea beasts that rushed out of the Lost Islands. Entering the Lost Islands, not only will we lose our way, we will also be attacked by countless powerful sea beasts. The sea beasts in the Lost Islands usually won't go out easily. That time, they might have gone out because of the fog. Then we'll have to be more careful, Xiaolingyu said with narrowed eyes. That's natural. However, this time we might be able to make a huge profit. With an experienced and powerful expert like Uncle Tua keeping watch, we won't have to worry too much. Miling's nervous expression gradually turned into anticipation. After all, worrying was useless. The ship had already sailed into the Lost Islands. That's strange. Our spiritual sense isn't restricted at all. How can we lose our way? Xiaolingyu was puzzled. This Lost Islands is like a mystery to the cultivators of Gourd Bay. No cultivator can explain the strange situation here. They can only speculate that there's a natural formation here. Miling said with a smile. Roar! Just as Miling finished speaking, the roar of a sea beast suddenly sounded. Then, a sea snake with a waist thicker than a bucket revealed half of its body on the surface of the sea. It swayed its body in the fog. The sea snake opened its bloody mouth. Its two venomous fangs were like two sharp swords. Its two triangular eyes also shone with a strange green light. Just as everyone was shocked, the sea snake's tail rose from the water and fiercely slapped the bow of the ship. Chapter 787. Gold light, green light, blue light, red light, yellow light. The 5 colors instantly intertwined and shot into the air. In the blink of an eye, they turned into a 5-colored light sword and ruthlessly slashed at the sea snake's tail. With a piu sound, the 5-colored light sword tore through the scales on the sea snake's tail, causing a terrifying wound to appear on the sea snake's tail. Moreover, blood spurted out from the wound. Roar! The sea snake was in pain and actually let out a roar that sounded like a dragon's roar. Other than Xiaolingyu and Sangji, the cultivators on the ship were all seasoned cultivators. After a brief moment of shock, they successively attacked. More than 20 rays of divine light whizzed out. Before the sea snake could escape, it was hit by these divine lights, following which, its huge body crashed into the water with a loud bang. Instantly, the seawater around the ship turned blood red. A thick smell of blood floated in the misty white fog. The battle started very suddenly, but it ended very quickly as well. That sea snake was only at the 7th celestial layer of longevity realm. How could it withstand the attacks of so many sailors and hunters? In less than a breath's time, it had already lost its life. After its corpse fell into the water, it gradually floated to the surface. The sea snake's tail was still twitching slightly. Streams of blood spurted out from the wounds on its body. Third young mistress, fish it up and take out its life jewel. Uncle Tuo reminded Sangji. Ah? Sangji's reaction was slightly slower. After regaining her senses, Sangji waved her hand and threw out a large net. She caught the sea snake on the deck of the ship. Its life jewel is in its head. Uncle Tua pointed at the sea snake's head and said. Sangji put away the large net and took out a sharp sword. Ha! Sangji let out a delicate shout. The sharp sword easily split open the sea snake's head. A pearl wrapped in light blue fog floated out. Sangji appeared to be very happy. She used a jade box that she had prepared beforehand to keep the bead. Since the snake meat is still fresh, let's have a piece, Uncle Tua said to everyone. All the crew members, including Myling, seemed very happy. They all stepped forward, took out their weapons, and cut off pieces of the fat snake meat. Brother Xiao, don't just stand there. Besides yang crystals and life jewels, this meat is the best cultivation material that we crew can get, Myling said to Xiaolingyu. The great sea serpent's body was huge. Even though everyone had cut a piece of it, it only reduced the size of its body by less than a third. The remaining part was kept in the storage magic treasure by Sangji under Uncle Tuo's reminder. In the next 20 years of time, the large ship had always been controlled by Tuo Bo as it moved between the islands of the Lost Trace Islands. Sea beasts that weren't weak were killed one after another, and their life pearls fell into Sangji's storage magic treasure one after another. Although the Lost Islands was a forbidden area for ordinary cultivators, there were no sea beasts that were too strong. The strongest sea beast was only at the 9th heavenly layer. Even a 9th heavenly layer sea beast would not be able to defeat so many cultivators on the Sang clan's black iron ship. Moreover, there was an expert like Uncle Tua on the ship. Uncle Tua did not participate in any battles other than manning the helm and protecting Sangji. It was as if the sea beasts here were not worth his time. Even when 2 crew members died in the battle with the 9th heavenly layer sea beast, Uncle Tua was only manning the helm and protecting Sangji. He ignored the sea beast's attacks. Fortunately, the other 5 cultivators of the Sang clan were of the metal, wood, water, fire, and earth attribute. They were very good at combining forces. When they attacked together, they could display a strength that was not weaker than a 9th heavenly layer longevity expert. Otherwise, the cultivators on the ship would have a hard time dealing with a 9th heavenly layer longevity sea beast. In order to ensure Sangji's safety on her first voyage, the Sang clan naturally made sufficient preparations. They even sent Uncle Tua, who had not left the Gourd City for many years. It was clear how much the Sang clan head loved and cared for his youngest daughter. The harvest from this voyage was already very impressive, and it was time to return. Although Sangji was not satisfied and wanted to expand the results of the battle so that she would have the ability to show off in front of the tribe when she returned, she really wanted to stay for a while more. However, Tuo Bo, who was obedient to her, insisted on leaving. Uncle Tua seemed to be a servant of the Sang clan. However, even the willful Sangji knew that Uncle Tua was not a servant of the Sang clan. Moreover, he had a very high status in the Sang clan. Even her own father had to be polite to this hunchbacked old man. She naturally did not dare to contradict Uncle Tua. She could only let Uncle Tua sail the ship away. Brother Xiao, can you still tell the direction? Myling asked Xiaolingyu. Yes, we are sailing towards the east, Xiaolingyu said with certainty. Haha, I feel the same as Brother Xiao. I feel that the ship is sailing towards the east. However, our feelings are most likely wrong. Myling shook his head and smiled. I can't feel the slightest trace of a formation here. There is also nothing special about the white fog here, Xiaolingyu said with a frown. That is what is strange about this place. Let alone us, I heard that even Nirvana realm cultivators would not be able to find anything strange here. However, they would not be able to tell the direction when they come in, just like us, Myling said. Then how did he find the way out? Xiaolingyu asked as she pointed at Uncle Tua, who had his back facing everyone. How would I know? Myling shrugged and said, but who cares? We have a very good harvest this time. I estimate that we will be able to get at least 3,000 yang crystals. 3,000 yang crystals. Xiaolingyu would have to work 150 shifts to get it. If he calculated it this way, it would naturally be a considerable amount of income. However, Xiaolingyu had just arrived at the world of immortals and he had already obtained 80,000 yang crystals. This made him feel that a few hundred or a few thousand yang crystals were nothing. He also felt that even if he took the risk to go out to sea, it would not be a way to quickly increase his wealth. However, other than going out to sea on a large ship, he could not think of any other way to quickly become rich. He was no longer a powerful cultivator. He did not have the primal chaos code or the demon sealing pagoda that could guarantee his safety. It seemed that he could only take one step at a time in the world of immortals. In addition, he had offended the Yun family in Gourd City. He could only be careful. Xiaolingyu also thought that he could take his wives and friends away from Gourd Island. This way, he would not have to worry about the Yun family's revenge. However, leaving Gourd Island was not easy. Other places might not be safe. If he took his wives and friends away, he might encounter even more trouble. Roar! Just as Xiaolingyu was thinking about his future, a sudden roar shook the sky. The sound waves that made one's heart palpitate actually set off stormy waves on the surface of the sea. It even shook the ship. Then, rolling dark clouds covered the sky. In a breath's time, they gathered in the sky above the ship. As they rolled and surged, there was also a terrifying sound of thunder. Streaks of lightning flashed with a frightening and glaring brilliance. Waves of powerful aura accompanied by gusts of hurricanes rushed over. Uncle Tuo, who had been calm and composed, actually became gloomy. The ship was still braving the wind and breaking the waves at full speed. However, the dark clouds above their heads were still following them like a shadow. Torrential rain poured down crazily. The raindrops made pitter-patter sounds on the deck. All the crew members, including Xiaolingyu, became nervous. It was obvious that the ship had been targeted by an abnormally powerful sea beast. In Xiaolingyu's opinion, the powerful aura that was constantly surging over here was much stronger than the ninth heaven immortal moon otter that he had encountered on the island. The sea beast that had targeted the ship was most likely an existence that had surpassed the immortal realm and was in the nirvana realm. If not for Uncle Tuo, even if all the cultivators on the ship fought with their lives on the line, they would definitely not be a match for the nirvana realm sea beast. The sea beast had yet to show itself. It had been chasing the ship and using its powerful aura to disturb everyone. Everyone suddenly felt that they were like a group of rabbits that had been targeted by a falcon. They had originally come to hunt, but they had become the prey instead. Not long after, there was an additional wave of powerful aura that was surging over. Moreover, it was equally powerful. Oh no, we might be targeted by two Nirvana realm sea beasts at the same time. Just as Myling said this, another wave of powerful aura locked onto the ship. It's over. Myling, who had always been optimistic, had a look of despair on his face. However, soon after, the three waves of powerful aura turned into four. Four Nirvana realm sea beasts surrounded them at the same time. Even if Uncle Tuo was also a Nirvana realm powerhouse, he might not be able to protect everyone as they charged out of the bewildering maze islands safely. Without waiting for Uncle Tuo to drive the ship out of the bewildering maze islands, the four sea beasts that had been chasing for a long time finally revealed themselves. The four sea beasts looked exactly the same. They were four gigantic crabs. However, they were different from ordinary sea crabs. When they surfaced from the water, they were like four small islands cast from steel. However, they had two thick and long whiskers that were like steel whip. What was even stranger was that they had a circle of eyes that constantly released blue light around their bodies. They separated into four different directions and surrounded the ship. Waves of powerful aura had already suppressed the ship to the point that it was unable to move an inch. Although Sangji wasn't strong, her courage wasn't small. Even when facing such a dangerous situation, her body was still as straight as a pencil. However, her jade-like hand that was tightly holding onto the corner of the hunchback's clothes exposed the weakness in her heart. Xiaolingyu wasn't strong either. However, he had experienced countless battles on his way from the cultivation world to the world of immortals. He was much calmer than ordinary cultivators in the face of danger. After stopping the ship, the 4 strange sea crabs moved their 2 whiskers at the same time and swept towards the ship. The 5 Sang clan guards grouped together and used the 5 elements formation to block the sea crab's attack. Uncle Tua still stood beside Sang Ji. The other cultivators had no choice but to group together and defend against the sea crab's attack. Banging sounds continuously came from the ship. The 8 whiskers that were like steel whips whipped the deck of the ship. Chapter 788. Before the cultivators who fell into the sea could jump back onto the deck, they were tied up by the 8 whiskers that were like steel whip. What was shocking was that the tied-up crew members were then sent into the mouths of the 4 sea crabs. They did not even have the chance to scream. The cultivators who were still standing on the deck were all deathly pale, their eyes filled with despair. If there were only 1 or 2 Nirvana realm sea beasts, Uncle Tua and the other crew members might be able to escape with their lives. However, there was almost no hope now. All of you, hide in the cabin. Uncle Tuo's roar was still very clear in the storm. The frightened crew members hid in the cabin one after another, but they were still very nervous as they looked at the ladder that led to the deck. Soon after, everyone discovered that the cabin was rapidly shrinking. It was originally very spacious, but it was gradually becoming crowded. The entire ship should be shrinking, but during this process, it was still constantly shaking. It could be seen that the 4 sea crabs' attack did not stop. They really did not know how Uncle Tua was going to deal with the 4 Nirvana realm sea beasts. Not long after, the violently shaking ship began to slowly speed up again. Looking from the outside, the ship was wrapped in a ring of black light. The 4 sea crabs were constantly using all kinds of divine abilities to attack the ring of black light. However, the defensive power of the black light was too shocking. Although it was constantly shaking, there were no signs of it collapsing. At the helm of the ship, Sang Ji was under the guidance of Uncle Tu. He was constantly forming all kinds of seals and sending them into the helm. The ship was constantly accelerating as it moved forward in the stormy sea. It looked swaying, but it was not going to capsize. Uncle Tua was guiding Sang Ji's route as he stared at the 4 sea crabs outside. The black circle of light persisted for an entire 2 hours, but in the end it was still broken through. When the 4 sea crabs that were in hot pursuit waved their steel whip-like whiskers to attack, Tua Bo suddenly stomped his feet, and actually managed to stabilize the ship that was about to collapse. The powerful aura that was released from his body shook away all 8 whiskers. Another ring of black light enveloped the ship. The attacks of the 4 sea crabs were blocked, and the ship continued to move forward. However, at this moment, Uncle Tuo's face had become somewhat pale. His aged body finally began to tremble. It seemed that the seemingly simple exertion of strength just now had actually exhausted him quite a bit. Since Uncle Tua dared to sail the ship into the Lost Trace Islands, he naturally had the confidence to bring everyone away. Even though some of the crew members had already died, Uncle Tua did not care about their lives. He was only here to protect Sang Ji and to ensure that Sang Ji could return safely from this trip. The sacrifice of the other cultivators had nothing to do with him. On one hand, Uncle Tua was confident in his own strength. On the other hand, he knew that the ship's defenses would not be easily broken through. However, a round trip of the ship required a lot of yang crystals, and at this time, a powerful defensive barrier had been activated, causing the ship's energy consumption rate to increase by a lot. The harvest of this trip was almost gone. After the black ring of light was broken by the 4 sea crabs 8 times, the ship finally sailed out of the Lost Trace Islands waters. However, the 4 sea crabs were still chasing after them. Their continuous attacks caused the ship to be unable to increase its speed. Everyone was still in a dangerous situation. Xiaolingyu and the other cultivators in the ship's cabin spent a period of extremely anxious days. They did not know that the ship had already sailed out of the Lost Trace Island's waters. After waiting for a long time, the ship suddenly stopped. The cabin began to gradually expand until it returned to its original appearance. The crew members felt that the ship was unusually stable and did not sway anymore. They left the cabin one after another and went to the deck. There was only Sang Ji on the deck. She stood alone at the helm, trembling. "Where's Uncle Tua?" a crew member asked. Sang Ji turned around with a face full of lingering fear. She said with a trembling voice, in order to buy time for us to escape, he fought 4 sea beasts alone. I don't know how he is now." After hearing Sang Ji's answer, most of the crew members were secretly glad that they had escaped a calamity. Only a few of them were worried about Uncle Tua. "Don't worry, Uncle Tua is very strong. Even if he couldn't defeat those 4 sea beasts, he should be able to escape." The kind-hearted Myling comforted them. But he was already exhausted at that time. Sang Ji's eyes were already filled with tears. Although the Sang family's third young miss was unruly and willful, she was not a cruel person. At the very least, she was still very concerned about the people close to her. Everyone did not know how to comfort her, and could only remain silent. "No, we have to go back and find Uncle Tu," Sang Ji said after being stunned for a while. "Absolutely not," most of the remaining crew members said in unison. The only ones who did not say anything were Xiaolingyu and the 5 Sang family expert. Even Myling felt that it was impossible. "We have sailed too far away from the Mystic Islands. Uncle Tua might have already escaped. If we go back and bump into those 4 sea beasts again, wouldn't we be seeking death?" "That's right. Uncle Tua covered our escape. Even if something bad happened to him, at least he achieved his goal. If we go back and throw away our lives, wouldn't we be letting down his kind intentions?" The crew members all spoke out with a strong sense of righteousness. Indeed, even from Xiaolingyu's point of view, there was no point in going back now. A battle between experts would not last long. The outcome of the battle between Uncle Tua and the 4 sea beasts had already been decided. Uncle Tua had either died in battle or escaped. If they went back now, they would not be able to find Uncle Tua. Instead, it was very likely that they would bump into those 4 sea beasts again. However, Xiaolingyu had a trace of doubt. Under such circumstances, Uncle Tua actually chose to stay behind and defend against the 4 sea beasts, giving everyone a chance to escape. Under normal circumstances, the cultivators would most likely choose to escape on their own. With Uncle Tuo's strength, he should be able to escape. Even if he brought Sang Ji along, it should not be too difficult. Could it be that I am too narrow-minded? Or perhaps I underestimated Uncle Tuo's loyalty to the Sang family. Or perhaps Uncle Tua is trying to make up for his mistake of bringing everyone to the Mystic Islands. Xiaolingyu mocked herself in her heart. "If you're not going, then I'll go alone. If you're afraid of death, then get off the ship," Sang Ji stubbornly said. "We can get off the ship, but according to the usual practice, if you want us to get off the ship midway, you'll have to pay us in advance, as well as pay us for the return trip." "That's right. It's not easy to get a free ride now. We'll have to wait for a long time in the vicinity before we can find a ship to return home. Most importantly, this place is close to the outer seas. There are very few ships that pass by. Moreover, if we stay here for a long time, we might encounter powerful sea beasts from the outer seas. Third young mistress, your Sang family's actions will be criticized." Everyone began to discuss again. "Isn't it just young crystals? I'll give them to you." Sang Ji's tears finally fell from her eyes. However, the stubborn her soon discovered that although the yang crystals she brought with her were not completely used up by the ship, it was far from enough to pay the crew's commission and return trip expenses. Moreover, if she gave all her yang crystals to the crew, the ship would have no energy to support it. Naturally, they could forget about going to the Lost Trace Islands, and even returning to Gourd Island would be a problem. Everyone was waiting for Sang-ji to pay, but Sang-ji was unable to do so. However, Sang-ji's young mistress' temper flared up again. Coupled with her worry for Uncle Tuo's safety, she steeled herself and said, "If you want money, wait until I find Uncle Tuo." Then, Sang-ji started the ship and steered it forward. The crew grew anxious. While protesting, they rushed to the helm. The 5 experts from the Sang family stood in front of Sang-ji. However, they had not expected such a situation to occur, and would not attack the crew right from the start. As a result, the dozen or so crew members were able to break through their defenses in an instant. The 5 experts were all extremely loyal. They were afraid that the crew members would harm Sang-ji, who was only at the 4th heavenly layer of longevity. Naturally, they attacked one after another. Unfortunately, the 5 experts of the Sang family could no longer form a formation. They were separated by the crew members, and each of them was facing 2 or even 3 times their number. The scene immediately became chaotic. Even though Miling and Xiao Lingyu were relatively calm and did not attack, the 5 Sang family experts were completely forced into a passive position. As for Sang-ji, she was practically incapable of fighting. After all, the crew members she recruited were all at least at the 5th heavenly layer of longevity. There was no lack of 6th or 7th heavenly layer experts among them. The 5 experts of the Sang clan were unable to form a formation. Their only advantage was that they had an expert at the 8th celestial layer of longevity realm. "If you don't stop, don't blame me for being merciless." The 8th heavenly layer expert from the Sang family was furious. His voice shook everyone's ears. "We can't stop. Once the 5 of them form a formation, we'll lose our chance to attack." One of the crew members shouted. Indeed, once the 5 experts of the Sang family formed a formation, they would have the strength of a 9th heavenly layer longevity. Even if the other dozen or so crew members joined forces, they would still be defeated. The chaotic battle began again. Even though the 8th heavenly layer expert was furious, he could only protect Sang-ji tightly. He was unable to use any techniques to his heart's content. The other 4 experts of the Sang family were all at the 7th heavenly layer. They could not hold on for long. Moreover, under the control of the crew members, it was difficult for them to join forces. Seeing the chaotic battle on the deck, Xiao Lingyu frowned. "Brother Xiao, you're at the 5th heavenly layer, and I'm only at the 7th heavenly layer. It's best if we don't help either of us, so as to avoid future troubles," Miling reminded. "If I help the Sang family now, they might be able to help me if I need their help in the future," Xiao Lingyu said meaningfully. Chapter 789. Xiao Lingyu wasn't just thinking about the Sang clan helping him deal with the Yun clan. He also thought of many other things. For example, if he didn't do anything this time, the Sang clan wouldn't bring him along the next time they set sail. Just as the eldest daughter of the Yun clan had said, a clan like the Yun clan cared a lot about their reputation. They had lost face at the Awakened God Pavilion, and it was hard to guarantee that they wouldn't try to regain their dignity elsewhere. Apart from the Sang clan ships, it would be difficult to find any other ships in Gourd Bay that dared to take him out to sea. That would undoubtedly mean one less way to earn yang crystals. If he helped Sang-ji this time, even if he didn't gain the trust of the Sang clan, he would at least leave a good impression on them. In the future, they would bring him out to sea more often, and even give him more yang crystals. After all, this wasn't the God realm, and he wasn't a peak expert who could shake the world. For the sake of his wives and friends who were still weak, he had to be more calculative and take more risk. After weighing the pros and cons, Xiao Lingyu made his move under Miling's astonished gaze. Although he was only at the peak of the 5th heavenly layer, he was still at the middle stage of the 10th cycle chaotic creation realm. He wasn't any weaker than someone at the 7th heavenly layer. This could be seen from the fact that he was able to defeat the Yun clan's second steward. First, he formed a barrier with his Chaos Origin power to protect himself. Then, he wrapped his hands in primal Chaos Truefire. Xiao Lingyu charged into the chaotic battlefield, attacking with his fists and legs. Every cultivator who was hit by him spat out blood and retreated in defeat. Xiao Lingyu's physical strength was already strong, and coupled with the might of the primal Chaos Truefire, these sailors who were at most at the 7th heavenly layer had no way of resisting. If he used his full strength, Xiao Lingyu could fight against someone at the 8th heavenly layer. This was the true strength he had after so many years of awakening. When Myling saw this, he hesitated for a moment. Then, he made up his mind and joined the fray. Naturally, he would help Xiao Lingyu. The situation was first balanced, then gradually reversed. Finally, the sailors were completely suppressed. However, 2 of the 5 Sang family guards who tried their best to resist had already been killed mercilessly. Their corpses were thrown into the ocean. The other 3 guards, including the 8th Celestial Layer Longevity Master, were all injured. Xiao Lingyu still had a sense of propriety when he attacked. He only injured the crew members and did not kill them. The crew members were all enraged and did not show any mercy. Even though Xiao Lingyu's defense was not weak, there were still a few wounds on her body. Although he was covered in blood, his clothes were tattered, and he looked very miserable. In reality, he had only suffered some superficial wounds. Just as the situation was turning around, what no one expected was that Tuo Bo actually flew over from afar and landed firmly on the deck of the ship. Uncle Tuo was also covered in wounds. His hair, which had been tied up with a headband, was now scattered across his shoulders. He looked at the bloodstains on the deck and saw that 2 of the Sang family guards were missing. Sang Ji was trembling uncontrollably, and Uncle Tuo was clearly in a bad condition. His face revealed a sinister expression. Of the crew members recruited by the Sang family, apart from Xiao Lingyu and Myling, there were only 8 left. Moreover, almost all of them had lost their ability to fight. The 8th heavenly layer Sang family guard walked up to Uncle Tuo and whispered a few words. The corner of Tuo Bo's mouth twitched a few times and his eyes narrowed. This old man, who originally looked amiable, was actually surging with killing intent at this moment. All of you deserve to die. Uncle Tuo did not waste any words. As soon as he finished speaking, a faint golden fiery orange appeared in his palm. The strange thing was that after the fire orange flower trembled, it turned into 8 flowers. Uncle Tuo flicked his 5 fingers, and the 8 faint golden fiery oranges shot out together. In an instant they shot towards the 8 crew members like sharp arrows. Immediately, the bodies of the 8 crew members were ignited by the faint golden flames, and their bodies quickly melted. Feeling the burning pain all over their bodies, feeling the loss of their life force, and feeling the threat of death, the crew members all let out miserable cries. Xiao Lingyu's eyebrows knitted together again, but he did not say anything. Myling was secretly rejoicing. Fortunately, he and Xiao Lingyu had chosen to help the Sang family. Otherwise, even if they had remained neutral, Uncle Tuo would not have treated them kindly when he returned. The bodies of the 8 crew members were burned to ashes, and in just a few moments, their bodies and souls had all been destroyed. Xiao Lingyu felt that if Uncle Tuo had used the faint golden flames to deal with him, he would not have been able to avoid being hit. Moreover, the might of the faint golden flames was clearly much stronger than his own primal chaos Truefire. An immortal realm cultivator was simply too weak in front of a nirvana realm cultivator. If not for the huge difference in strength, no immortal realm cultivator would be willing to risk his life to break through to the nirvana realm. After the 8 crew members were destroyed, Uncle Tuo's complexion gradually improved. He then looked towards Myling and Xiao Lingyu. Being stared at by Uncle Tuo, Myling could not help but take a step back. Xiao Lingyu, however, stood firmly in his original position. On behalf of the Sang family, this old man thanks the two of you for your righteous assistance at this critical moment. The Sang family will definitely repay you generously for this matter. Our Sang family has always been clear about gratitude and grudges. Uncle Tua cupped his fists and bowed, speaking extremely politely. Xiao Lingyu and Miling both returned the greeting, saying that it was only natural. After the repeated battles, everyone was injured. Naturally, they would first recuperate in the cabin. The Sang family cultivators were indeed not stingy. Xiao Lingyu and Miling both received a high-quality, healing pill from Uncle Tua. Sang Ji was only slightly frightened, and did not suffer any substantial injuries. After calming herself down for a few days, she once again steered the ship towards Gourd Island. After being frightened and feeling the danger outside, what a girl like Sang Ji wanted most was to return home. The ship traveled at full speed for 8 years before finally reaching Gourd Island. Sang Ji was not as excited as she was when they first came out. As they neared Gourd Island, she had the ship slow down to avoid crashing into any other islands or passing ship. Very soon, the Gourd Island was already in sight, but a large golden ship was approaching. The golden ship was slightly larger than the black iron ship, and its entire body shone with golden light. It did not take much to tell that it was the Yun family's ship. The Yun clan's golden ship came closer and stopped 10 zhang away from the Sang clan's black iron ship, slowly sailing towards Gourd Island. I heard that it was Third Miss' first time out at sea. I didn't believe it at first, but I didn't expect the rumors to be true. An embroidered-robed young master stood at the helm of the ship and greeted her with a smile. That embroidered-robed young master was naturally the young master of the Yun family. Although his status was similar to Sang Ji's, his cultivation was much higher than Sang Ji's. Sang Ji was not in a good mood. Moreover, due to the rumors of her clan, she had never liked the Yun family. Even though the Yun family's embroidered-robed young master was extraordinarily handsome, she did not have the slightest favorable impression of him. As a result, she only snorted and did not reply. The Yun family's embroidered-robed young master did not feel awkward. He maintained a smile on his face and said, "Third Miss, you must have gained a lot this time out at sea, right? How come I don't see any crew members?" Sang Ji remained silent, as if she was completely focused on steering the ship. The Yun family's embroidered-robed young master continued, "It is an honor to be able to return with Third Miss this time. However, compared to the 3 life pearls of 9th Heaven Longevity Sea Beasts and 20 life pearls of 8th Heaven Longevity Sea Beasts, Third Miss must have gained a lot, right?" Sang Ji had always been unruly and willful, and naturally had a stubborn personality. She hated it when others showed off in front of her. In the end, she could not help but say, "What does your Yun family's harvest have to do with me? Do we have to inform your Yun family of our harvest this time out at sea?" "Ha!" The Yun family's embroidered-robed young master laughed and said, looking at Third Miss's temper, "You must have gained very little." "Ha ha, that's understandable. After all, this is Third Miss' first time out at sea." Sang Ji could not take it anymore. She said, "How do you know that we gained very little?" The Yun family's embroidered-robed young master replied, "Third Miss, don't deny it. You didn't even see a single crew member on your ship. If I'm not wrong, those crew members must have lost their lives at sea, right? Although the inner seas are much more peaceful than the outer seas, there are still occasional big troubles. You must have encountered big trouble." Sang Ji rolled her eyes and said unhappily, "You think too highly of yourself." At this moment, the ships on both sides had already reached the shore. The Yun family's crew members filed out, and then took to the sky in formation, flying towards Gourd City. However, after the Yun family's embroidered-robed young master put away his golden ship, he led a few Yun family guards who were clearly not weak and waited by the shore, staring at the Sang family's ship. Sang Ji was so angry that the roots of her teeth were itching, but she could not do anything about it. Xiao Lingyu, Miling, and the 3 Sang family guards flew to the shore one after another. Uncle Tuo was the last to leave the cabin. Sang-ji also flew to the shore, and with a wave of his sleeve, put away the black metal ship. Just as I expected, the crew members have all died at sea, haha. The Yun family's embroidered-robed young master laughed loudly. Xiaolingyu looked at the Yun family's embroidered-robed young master, and found him to be somewhat familiar. Upon closer inspection, she realized that this person looked very similar to the one she had met before, but they were not the same person. When the Yun family's guards heard their young master's words, they all laughed along. Xiaolingyu and Meiling did not feel anything. After all, the other party's mockery was not directed at them, but the 3 Yun family guards were extremely angry. Uncle Tuo returned to his servant appearance, and only stood silently beside Sang-ji, not saying a word. It was not that the Yun family's young master did not know that Uncle Tuo was an expert, but he was not afraid, because the Yun family also had experts. As the Yun family's young master, there was no need for him to give face to a servant from an enemy family, and there was also no need for him to worry too much. After all, Gourd Island was right beneath his feet. Since you know that this is my first time out at sea, then don't show off here. You're clearly a 4-legged worm. Just because you put 2 horns on your head, you think you're a true dragon? After replying, Sang-ji led everyone into the air. Chapter 790. Sang-ji first looked at Xiaolingyu, then sneered. What a joke. Yunemo, your Yun family thinks too highly of yourselves. You can act all high and mighty in your Yun family, but this isn't your Yun family's courtyard. We're not your Yun family's servants. You'd better step aside. So you're saying that your Sang family isn't going to hand him over? The young master called Yunemo asked with a straight face. A good dog doesn't block the way. Sang-ji replied straightforwardly. Yunemo was so angry that he immediately charged forward. However, when he saw that the stooped Uncle Tuo had already taken a step forward, he rationally stopped. Let's wait and see. Yunemo retreated to the front of the Yun family's experts. So what if we run and see? Sang-ji seemed to have a sharp tongue. At least in front of the Yun family, his words were sharp. Yunemo pointed at Xiaolingyu and said, Since you dared to offend my Yun family, do you dare to step forward now? Childish. Sang-ji mocked. If you're so courageous and unyielding, then don't bully others just because you have more people. Don't use your family's background to show off. If you have the ability, then spar with him alone. Do you dare? Yunemo laughed loudly and said, Why wouldn't I dare? Today, I'll teach him a lesson by myself. I'm just afraid that he won't dare to step out and will hide under your Sang family's tree like a coward. Xiaolingyu, since he's so sincere, shouldn't you give him face? Sang-ji said to Xiaolingyu. In fact, on the way back, Sang-ji had already learned from Uncle Tuo that Xiaolingyu was indeed at the 5th celestial layer of longevity, but she had the strength of the 8th celestial layer of longevity. Moreover, when Xiaolingyu fought with the crew on the deck of the ship, Sang-ji had already seen it. It was precisely because he knew that Xiaolingyu had the strength of the 8th celestial layer of longevity that Sang-ji used words to lure Yunemo to challenge Xiaolingyu. Many cultivators with some status in Gourd City knew that Yunemo was the 3rd young master of the Yun family. He relied on his powerful family background and his excellent cultivation talent. He was arrogant and looked down on everyone. Yunemo hadn't been cultivating for long, but he only used a mere 100,000 years to cultivate from the 3rd celestial layer of longevity when he was born to the 6th celestial layer of longevity. This cultivation speed could be said to be terrifying even if he had a large amount of cultivation resources. It was also why he was recognized as the #1 cultivation genius in Gourd City. However, what everyone didn't expect was that until now, Yunemo had only reached the 7th celestial layer of longevity, and the name of a genius no longer existed. Everyone felt that his improvement back then wasn't because of his own comprehension and hard work, but because he relied on the Yun family's solid foundation. Yunemo first went through many years to reach the 7th celestial layer of longevity, and then he climbed up the 7th celestial layer of longevity for countless years. Until now, there had been no news of him breaking through to the 8th celestial layer of longevity. Perhaps it was because he had been suppressing his cultivation all these years, causing Yunmo's temper to become more and more irritable, and his state of mind fluctuated greatly. "I'm not interested. It's meaningless to fight based on personal feelings," Xiaolingyu replied indifferently. In Xiaolingyu's opinion, this fight naturally wasn't something that could be fought just because he wanted to. The most important thing was that once he fought, if he won, who could guarantee that the Yun family's guards wouldn't intervene? Who could guarantee that the Sang family's people would definitely stand up for him? Sang Ji's enthusiasm was most likely because he wanted to see Yunemo make a fool of himself. He just wanted to have some fun. It wasn't that he was timid, but that he didn't want to give others a chance to kill him before he was strong enough. Did you hear that? He doesn't want to fight with you one-on-one. You're no longer the #1 cultivation genius in Gourd City. Sang Ji mocked. Yunmo's expression became even uglier, and he immediately said to Xiaolingyu, "Coward, a real man doesn't shrink from a fight. You're such a coward, and you'll be a slave for the rest of your life. Could it be that you were born to be a slave, or that your parents were both slaves, and that's why they raised you, a bastard slave?" These words were a little harsh, and even Sang Ji felt that it was too much. Even Uncle Tuo, whose expression hadn't changed, frowned. "Ha ha!" Xiaolingyu laughed, but it was a little sinister. What wrong did his parents do to raise him? Why should he be insulted even though they were already dead? It was fine to scold him, but scolding his parents had definitely crossed Xiaolingyu's bottom line and reverse scale. Dragons had reverse scales, and those who touched them would be enraged. Weren't humans like this too? Xiaolingyu didn't scold him back. It was like biting a dog and not biting back. He only took 2 steps forward. With just these 2 steps, his murderous intent had already surged out. "If you think you have the guts, then tell your guards to retreat 300 feet. Xiaolingyu said coldly. "All right." Yunemo waved his hand behind him. The Yun family guards hesitated, but still retreated 300 feet. Sang Ji also retreated 300 feet with the Sang family cultivators, leaving the empty space for Xiaolingyu and Yunemo. Sang Ji's face was full of anticipation and mockery, while Meiling was a little worried. Regardless of whether they won or lost this battle, the conflict between Xiaolingyu and the Yun family would deepen. Moreover, if they lost, with Yunmo's personality, he definitely wouldn't leave Xiaolingyu a way out. Xiaolingyu also realized this, so there was no need to be polite. His aura began to rise crazily, and in a moment, it was already fluctuating with the aura of the 7th firmament of longevity. His clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. His black hair also danced. Yunemo naturally wouldn't sit and wait. His aura also began to rise continuously. To everyone's surprise, the fluctuations of his aura actually proved that he already had the cultivation of the 8th firmament of longevity. It seems that this guy isn't just a guy who's all talk. Oh right, since he recognized me, he must also know that I once injured the 2nd butler of the 7th firmament of longevity at the Awakening God Tower. If he's still at the 7th firmament of longevity, he definitely won't agree to a one-on-one fight with me. He shouldn't be as simple as he looks on the surface. Maybe he was deliberately angering me just now. Another scheming person. In an instant, Xiaolingyu thought of many things. Offending my Yun family is your stupidest choice. Yunemo sneered. Then, his body swayed and he rushed towards Xiaolingyu at an extremely fast speed. When he was about to approach, a long narrow saber appeared in Yunmo's hand. The long saber flickered with a cold light and looked incomparably sharp. Moreover, there were demonic patterns on the saber. Xiao Lingyu released his full strength and instantly reached the aura of the 8th firmament of longevity. When the long saber pierced towards him, his body quickly rose 3 feet high. The long saber pierced through the air. Yunemo smiled indifferently. Then, he raised his saber and slashed upwards with one arm. Before the blade arrived, a large expanse of bright saber light had already whizzed out first. Xiao Lingyu shouted softly. The primal chaos true fire gushed out from his palm and quickly turned into a fire snake, pouncing towards the saber light from top to bottom. Boom, a dull sound was heard. The saber light and the flames intertwined. First, a dazzling brilliance erupted, and then they were annihilated at the same time. However, at this moment, the long saber's body rose into the air with Yun Mo's body, and caught up. The saber's body slashed towards Xiao Lingyu's crotch. Humph! Xiao Lingyu snorted coldly and raised one leg. Then, the tip of his foot accurately pointed at the long saber's body and kicked it slightly to the side. The long saber swept past Xiao Lingyu's shoulder. Just as it passed his shoulder, it suddenly rose horizontally and slashed horizontally towards Xiao Lingyu's neck. Although it was a simple close-range attack, it could be seen that Yun Mo's attack speed was extremely fast and the attack was very coherent. He should have spent a lot of energy cultivating his saber technique. Xiao Lingyu had also gone through thousands of battles. His fighting experience and awareness were not bad. At this moment, he could not dodge, but he could lean back in this split second and let the long saber sweep past the tip of his nose. The saber light was dazzling, and the wind from the saber made his face hurt. However, just as the long saber passed, Xiao Lingyu felt a sharp pain coming from one of his calves. Then, his body involuntarily flew backward. It turned out that when the long saber swept past the tip of his nose, Yunemo had kicked his calf. In terms of short-distance movement speed and close-range attack speed, Yunemo was clearly much stronger than Xiao Lingyu. All these years, the reason why Yun Mo's cultivation progress had slowed down was because he had focused on cultivating and a large amount of time and energy on cultivating his fighting awareness and skills. He did not blindly seek a breakthrough in his realm. If not for this, without so many years of study and hard training, how could Yun Mo have an advantage in front of Xiao Lingyu, who had a strong fighting awareness? After all, Xiao Lingyu had just ascended not long ago. He should be proud that he had the courage to face an expert at the 8th level of the longevity realm. Uncle Tuo, he won't lose, right? Sang Ji asked Uncle Tuo. Although she was not related to Xiao Lingyu in any way, compared to Yunemo, she naturally favored Xiao Lingyu. He can win. Uncle Tuo narrowed his eyes and said with certainty. Sang Ji, Miling, and the other 3 Sang family guards all looked at Uncle Tuo in astonishment. They did not know where Uncle Tuo's confidence in Xiao Lingyu came from. As Xiao Lingyu flew backwards, Yunemo did not stop. His long saber stabbed forward, and he chased after him. Xiao Lingyu's thoughts moved. Before Yunemo could get close, the wings of extreme speed appeared behind him. The disadvantage in speed could be made up for with the wings of extreme speed. The pair of silver wings stored an immeasurable amount of spatial energy. Furthermore, after many years of cultivation and refinement by Xiao Lingyu, the quality of the silver wings was even higher than Xiao Lingyu's body. It could be considered a special spatial treasure. The silver wings suddenly flapped, and Xiao Lingyu's body turned into a silver light and flew to the side. Yunemo, who was chasing after him, missed. Just as he dodged, the wings of extreme speed flapped again, and Xiao Lingyu actually charged back at Yunemo. As he charged back, a weapon appeared in Xiao Lingyu's hand. It was a short saber that was as thin as a cicada's wing. Just as Yunemo saw the saber light shoot out from the short saber, he was already enveloped by a circle of golden light. The golden light even sent him flying backwards. Then, he saw the saber light explode on the golden light. Chapter 791. The Super Hardcore Group, Group Number 366-73581 can hold 500 people, has been cleared. Hardcore readers, please rejoin. Subscription screenshots are required to enter the group. Non-hardcore readers and author friends are not allowed to disturb. Xiao Fei will often appear in this group to discuss the plot with everyone and to remind everyone of the exact update time. Super Hardcore Group Backup Group, Group Number 899804423, Normal Group, can hold 100 people. It turned out that the members of the Super Hardcore Group were very complicated. There were real hardcore fans, authors who were only there to advertise, and scammers with bad intentions who casually spread false information. Therefore, Xiao Fei cleared the group and recruited new members. The reorganized Super Hardcore Group will strictly check the members of the group. Only hardcore readers who have been subscribing for a long time will be accepted. After entering the group, please be mindful. Do not post any dirty pictures, talk about politics or other sensitive topics, and do not casually insult the other members of the group. This group mainly focuses on communicating about the plot of the story. Xiao Fei will take the time to chat with everyone about the plot of the story. She will also tell everyone the exact update time every day. As long as you are a long-term supporter of Xiao Fei, you can join. You can even stay in the group for 10,000 years as long as you abide by the law and occasionally make an appearance. As for the recent updates, Little Fei was actually doing the same as usual. The first 20 days were 2 updates, and the following 10 days were 3 updates. It was the same whether or not the big bosses were giving out gold medals. Of course, if there were more gold medals in the beginning, Little Fei would consider adding more. The update time is usually before 2100 hours PM, so that everyone will not wait too late. It is not realistic for Xiao Fei to completely fix the update time. After all, Xiao Fei has parents, a son who is not even a year old, and a wife. There will always be times when she is busy, and there will always be times when she is not in a good mood. Everyone should be more understanding. It is not easy for anyone. Xiao Fei could only try his best to release his new chapters as early as possible. He had been writing for 3 years now. If it wasn't for his strong character, how could there be so many people reading Xiao Fei's stories? Chapter 792. While he was still in shock, a piece of jade that was originally on Yun Mo's belt floated above his head. The circle of golden light was projected by that piece of jade. It was obvious that the piece of jade was a treasure that could automatically protect its owner. It had only released its power to protect Yun Mo when it sensed danger. Without that piece of jade, Yun Mo would have been seriously injured even if he didn't die. The sudden activation of the life-severing dagger was supposed to have an extremely powerful sneak attack effect, but it didn't succeed. Xiaolingyu naturally felt that it was a pity. However, Xiaolingyu launched another attack after his first attack failed. Similarly, a chaotic blade aura whizzed out. Just as it appeared, it had already slammed into the golden light barrier. However, the golden light barrier's defensive power was extremely strong. Even though the blade aura was formed from chaotic origin power, it could only explode after coming into contact with the golden light barrier. It could only send Yun Mo's body flying once again. Yun Mo's face immediately turned pale after being hit by the powerful force. He spat out blood, but he wasn't seriously injured. That dagger has some tricks up its sleeve. It seems to have a time-related ability. The attack had clearly just been launched, but it had already reversed space-time and directly entered the future to cause damage, Uncle Tua commented with narrowed eyes. No wonder you said he would win. Sangji didn't quite understand, but he still nodded. When I said that he would win, I wasn't referring to this short blade. Previously, I didn't know that he had this short blade. He should have a very powerful divine ability, Tuabo said with a smile. What ability? Sangji asked curiously. Perhaps he will use it in a while. Let's wait and see. Uncle Tua didn't directly answer Sangji's question. Before Xiao Lingyu could attack again, Yun Mo had already taken out a talisman paper. The talisman paper was dark green and had many runes drawn on it. As soon as it appeared, it suddenly exploded, causing a dark green glow to envelop Yun Mo's entire body. Following that, Yun Mo began to move at a high speed. Her speed was actually much faster than before. Xiao Lingyu kept waving the life-severing dagger to attack, but Yun Mo didn't stop. Xiao Lingyu's realm wasn't higher than Yun Mo's, so the life-severing dagger couldn't lock onto Yun Mo naturally. It couldn't hit Yun Mo. After making the life-severing dagger's attack ineffective, Yun Mo waved the long sword in her hand while moving at high speed, occasionally attacking Xiao Lingyu. Xiao Lingyu's speed was only comparable to Yun Mo's even with the help of the wings of extreme speed. Yun Mo was clearly more cautious than before, and the life-severing dagger was no longer effective against her. However, Yun Mo's attacks were no longer continuous because she was afraid of Xiao Lingyu's life-severing dagger. At this moment, the battle between the two of them was in a stalemate. They were already evenly matched. Xiao Lingyu had experienced countless bloody battles and was very experienced in battle. His battle awareness was also very high. He naturally wouldn't wait for his opponent to use any more powerful divine abilities or technique. As he flapped his wings of extreme speed and moved at high speed, he took out various materials and threw them into the void. In just a few seconds, Xiao Lingyu suddenly shouted loudly. Then, rolling thick fog appeared out of nowhere and instantly enveloped a large area of the surrounding space. Under the cover of the thick fog, wind howled and thunder roared. Fire and lightning intertwined to create a frightening and dangerous glow. Xiao Lingyu couldn't set up any particularly powerful formations in a short period of time. However, he was an expert in the Tao of formations after all. Even this simple formation was enough to give him a slight advantage. At least he wouldn't be affected by the formation. A simple wind and thunder formation had the power to gather the wind and thunder energy between heaven and earth. The extreme speed of the wind and the ferocity of the thunder both affected Yun Mo greatly, causing his speed to drop significantly. He was also unable to see Xiao Lingyu's position clearly. Yun Mo's speed had dropped, so the power of the life-severing dagger was naturally able to take effect. Streaks of chaotic light shot out from the life-severing dagger. However, as soon as Yun Mo saw the streaks of light, they had already landed heavily on the golden barrier around him. Bang, bang, bang! Accompanied by the howling of the wind and the roaring of the thunder, Yun Mo's expression became uglier and uglier. Blood dripped from the corners of his mouth. Xiao Lingyu didn't attack blindly. Occasionally, he would stop attacking and continue to strengthen the formation or set up some other formations. As a result, Yun Mo was constantly restricted within the formation. He was unable to unleash his full strength. The more he fought, the more frustrated he became. On one hand, Yun Mo's cultivation speed wasn't slow. On the other hand, he spent a large amount of time and energy honing his fighting instincts and technique. Naturally, he didn't know much about the Tao of restrictive formations. His current method of breaking through formations was to use brute force. Unfortunately, this method was a little too costly. What Xiao Lingyu was expending was nothing more than some formation materials. He set up the formation extremely quickly. Yun Mo couldn't rely on breaking through the formation to escape and turn the tables. "All right, I admit defeat," Yun Mo said dejectedly. Yun Mo's voice was restricted by the formation. Xiao Lingyu could hear it, but the cultivators outside couldn't. "Admit defeat? Haha." Xiao Lingyu only smiled. However, the formation didn't stop. His attacks were still ongoing. "You fight as you wish and leave as you wish. How can there be such a good deal? Those who humiliated my parents will be killed without mercy." Xiao Lingyu wasn't a gentleman, nor was he a broad-minded person. He was even more petty than anyone when it came to certain matters. If someone stabbed him with a sword, he might be able to tolerate it. However, if someone insulted his family, he couldn't tolerate it. When he decided to stand out and fight Yunemo one-on-one, he had already decided that Yunemo would die today. The jade tablet above Yunmo's head had already dimmed. The golden light barrier around him had also become much thinner. The dark green light around him that could greatly increase his speed had also weakened greatly. Yunmo's defense and speed were both decreasing. He gradually lost the ability to fight Xiaolingyu. You actually want to kill me? Yunemo finally realized the danger he was in. Xiaolingyu didn't reply. He only continued to attack with the life-severing dagger as he strengthened the formation. Humph! Yunemo snorted coldly. With a thought, a silver-gray bead appeared in his hand. Xiaolingyu could tell that the silver-gray bead wasn't simple. It might very well be Yunmo's trump card. Therefore, he didn't give Yunemo any more time or opportunity. He made a prompt decision and focused all of the formation's power on Yunemo. Meanwhile, he opened the vertical eye between his brows. When Yunmo's speed was reduced to the lowest possible level by the formation, a destructive bloody light suddenly shot out and accurately hit Yunmo's head. Bang! Boom! There was first an explosion, followed by another earth-shattering explosion. The explosion was caused by Yunmo's head exploding. The earth-shattering explosion was caused by the explosion of the silver-gray bead. A blinding silver light flashed, and a powerful shock wave instantly swept out in all directions. Not only did it sweep away Xiaolingyu's formation, it also violently rushed out of the battlefield. The Yun family guards were all pushed several hundred feet away. Uncle Tuo was the first to release his own aura to block the shockwave, protecting the Sang family cultivators and Myling. Apart from Yunemo, whose body had already been blown to pieces, Xiaolingyu was the cultivator closest to the center of the explosion. Naturally, he had to endure the most powerful shockwave. He only saw a silver light flash in front of his eyes. Then, an irresistible force rushed towards him. The violent spatial energy released by the explosion of the silver-gray bead was like countless sharp swords piercing towards him. Not only was Xiaolingyu's body sent flying, but he also felt waves of intense pain coming from all over his body. Xiaolingyu didn't know how much blood he had spat out as he flew backwards. He only knew that his body was riddled with holes, and many of his bones were probably broken. However, even though he was heavily injured, he still had his life. Yunemo had definitely been obliterated in both body and soul. When the shockwave washed over him, Myling immediately flew out and steadied Xiaolingyu's flying body. As for the Yun family guards, they were searching everywhere for traces of Yunemo. Are you alright? Myling asked with concern. Haha, do I look like I'm alright? Xiaolingyu laughed bitterly. That burst of energy just now had swept away the fog formed by the formation. Now, the surroundings were very clear, but the battlefield was already empty. Where had Yunemo gone? Apart from Xiaolingyu and Uncle Tuo, the other cultivators didn't know what had happened to Yunemo. Where's our third young master? A Yun family guard asked coldly. What a joke! How would we know where your third young master is? Sangji also arrived in front of Xiaolingyu and replied unhappily. The Yun family guards all felt that something was amiss. They could all guess the result, and all of them became nervous. If Yunemo was really dead, then they would definitely be severely punished when they returned. After all, they were Yunmo's guards. Your family's third young master wanted to detonate a silver-gray pearl to kill me. In the end, an accident happened. Although the pearl exploded, it exploded right next to him. Perhaps he hasn't mastered the method of using the pearl. After the pearl exploded, I was sent flying. As for what happened to your third young master, I really don't know, Xiaolingyu said gloomily and helplessly. The Yun family guard's expressions were unsettled. Why are you still standing here foolishly? Why aren't you going back to report the death? Sangji seemed to kindly remind them. The Yun family guards stared at Xiaolingyu for a while, then saw that Uncle Tuo was also standing next to Xiaolingyu. They were clearly in a dilemma. This person is related to our third young master's disappearance. We must bring him back to the Yun family. A Yun family guard braced himself and said, "Since your third young master is missing, why aren't you going to look for him?" Sang Ji continued, "As for him, he was injured by your third young master's vicious technique. We have to send him back to recuperate." With that, Sang Ji didn't waste any more words. He immediately led everyone back to Gourd City. The Yun family guards still stood in front of the Sang family cultivators, looking very determined. "Fine, I'll give you some confidence to go back." Uncle Tua attacked, but only used his aura to injure the Yun family guards. Chapter 793. Uncle Tua, you're quite accurate. You said that he would win, and he really did. Sang Ji seemed very happy. In the past, Yunemo had often mocked her for her slow cultivation progress. Today, that anger was finally gone. "I'm afraid that you'll cause a lot of trouble this time," Uncle Tua said calmly. "What kind of trouble can we cause? I didn't kill him. The Yun family can't possibly come after us, right?" Sang Ji said nonchalantly. "Third young mistress, you're being a little irresponsible," Meiling said with a frown. Sang Ji glanced at Xiaolingyu. Only then did she realize that what she said was inappropriate. She laughed and said, "Although I, Sang Ji, didn't kill him, Yun Mo's death made me very happy. I won't let the Yun family come after you." Meiling and Xiaolingyu didn't expect Sang Ji to take responsibility. For a young mistress like Sang Ji, she only cared about temporary gratification. She wouldn't care about the consequences. But now, other than the Sang family, Meiling and Xiaolingyu didn't know who else to rely on. Moreover, if Sang Ji hadn't insisted on arguing with Yunemo, everyone would have just flown to Gourd City, and that battle wouldn't have happened. Don't worry, it was a fair battle just now. Everyone relied on their own abilities. Moreover, Yunemo was the one who started the fight. Even if he died, he could only blame himself for not being skilled enough. The Yun family will definitely hate this, but they won't make a big fuss. After all, everyone still wants to maintain their reputation. Moreover, fighting and seeking revenge are forbidden in Gourd City. As long as little brother Xiao doesn't leave the city, the Yun family can't do anything to him. Uncle Tua followed up and reminded, if the Yun clan sends any more experts to challenge little brother Xiao in the city, little brother Xiao can just ignore them. No matter how much they insult you, just pretend that you didn't hear them. After all, you killed one of their geniuses, so there's no harm in letting them curse you. Xiaolingyu's injuries were not light. His face was pale as he nodded. He knew when to endure and when not to. Sang Ji led everyone into the city through the west gate. After walking through 3 streets, they arrived at the entrance of the Sang Manor. Sang Ji did not invite Xiaolingyu and Meiling in as guests. Instead, he asked the guards at the gate to escort Xiaolingyu and Meiling to the residence in the northern part of the city. "You guys go back first. I'll send someone to deliver the reward for this trip later." After Sang Ji finished speaking, he followed Uncle Tua into the Sang clan's courtyard. Under the escort of more than 10 experts from the Sang clan, Xiaolingyu and Mi Ling made it back to their own residence unscathed. In the eastern part of Gourd City, there was a large courtyard with high walls. It was heavily guarded. This was the Yun clan's residence. In a large hall deep within the Yun clan's residence, more than 10 Yun clan experts sat upright. The guards who followed Yunemo before were all kneeling in the hall. Bang! A middle-aged cultivator who was sitting in front of the entrance threw a white jade teacup onto the floor of the hall. "A bunch of trash. Someone actually killed Yunemo right under your noses. What use does my Yun clan have for you?" The middle-aged cultivator stood up and roared furiously. The Yun clan experts in the room were all silent out of fear. At this moment, no one had any intention of stepping out to plead for mercy for the guards. The patriarch's most beloved son had died. How could he not be angry? How could he not find someone to vent his anger on? Kill yourselves, the middle-aged cultivator said, not allowing them to refuse. The faces of the guards turned pale as they trembled all over. Lord Father, please calm down. A young man in embroidered clothes stood out. He first bowed and said, Lord Father, third brother is dead. However, they weren't the ones who killed him. They were all guards that our Yun clan carefully nurtured. They have been loyal to our Yun clan for many years. Lord Father, please forgive them this once. After all, if we want to take revenge, we have to find our true enemies. Killing our own people in our own home will only make our enemies happy. It's precisely because our Yun clan carefully nurtured them that they couldn't perform at a critical moment like this that they deserved to die. If our Yun clan cultivators were as useless as them, how could we establish ourselves in Gourd City and Gourd Bay in the future? The middle-aged cultivator said hatefully. Second brother, it's not up to you to tell Lord Father what to do. Another cultivator who looked slightly older than the young man in embroidered clothes stood out. He pointed at the guards and said, These trash deserve to die. The second young master of the Yun clan looked at the other experts of the Yun clan. However, everyone looked down and no one was willing to speak up. He could only sigh and silently take half a step back. What? Do you still want me to do it myself? The patriarch of the Yun clan said to the guards who were in despair. These guards knew that they couldn't escape death. However, they couldn't bear to kill themselves. Guards like them would receive a very generous supply of resources from the Yun clan. Usually, they didn't have to worry about yang crystals for cultivation. However, when they received such generous treatment, they also gave their lives to the Yun clan. When they became the elite guards of the Yun clan, the patriarch of the Yun clan had already planted a soul restriction on them. Therefore, they were extremely loyal. It was also because of the existence of the soul restriction that they didn't escape after Yun Mo's death. They could only hope that the patriarch would forgive them this once. Yun Hai, send them off, the patriarch of the Yun clan said to his eldest son. Yes, patriarch. Yun Hai didn't hesitate. With a light shout, a silver fire orange appeared in the palm of his hand. The fire orange then split into several strands and turned into a silver light that flew out. The several kneeling guards of the Yun clan were all hit by the silver light. Then, their bodies burned with silver flames and their bodies began to melt rapidly. After the guards of the Yun clan were all burned to ashes, the patriarch of the Yun clan said to Yun Hai with dissatisfaction, Yun Hai, you have been in the Nirvana realm for a long time, but your Nirvana true fire doesn't seem to have made much progress. The true fire in the body of a Nirvana realm expert would transform into Nirvana true fire. This was the key to advancing to the Nirvana realm. It was also the focus of cultivation in the Nirvana realm. It was also the symbol of a Nirvana realm expert. The power of Nirvana true fire was something that no immortality realm cultivator could withstand with their body. It was also not something that ordinary magic weapons could resist. I have been cultivating diligently. Yun Hai seemed to be a bit embarrassed. His words also seemed to be half-hearted. Yun Mo, I am a rare genius of the Yun clan. He died so tragically. How do you think we should deal with the murderer? The patriarch of the Yun clan sat back down in his seat. It seemed that killing the guards of the Yun clan had improved his mood of losing his beloved son. This matter is a bit tricky. If the murderer has been hiding in the city, even if our Yun clan is powerful and has many experts, we can't do anything to him. At this moment, the experts of the Yun clan who were sitting upright and still finally spoke up. Moreover, the Sang clan is clearly involved in this matter. We have to be careful. One of the experts of the Yun clan said. Although the Sang clan is involved, they didn't do anything. It's hard for us to use this as an excuse to make things difficult for the Sang clan. Right now, it's better to take revenge on the murderer. Yun Hai continued, the murderer can't be hiding in the city forever. He offended our Yun clan before, but didn't he still get out? From what I know, the murderer has many family members in the city. It won't be easy to feed these family members. Moreover, we can make our move in the residence they are currently living in and make them lose their foothold first. If we do that, I'm afraid that the murderer will directly side with the Sang clan. When that time comes, it will be even more difficult for us. One of the experts of the Yun clan said. Don't worry, the Yun clan won't take them in. The Yun clan patriarch continued. Soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single moment. Our Yun clan residence has too many guards who have lived like princes for many years. It's time for these guards to be mobilized. If we can't deal with the murderer in the open, then we'll have to do something in the dark. I'm sure it won't be hard to find a few death warriors in the residence, right? Death warriors naturally referred to people who didn't fear death. Everyone understood what the Yun clan patriarch meant. He wanted to find a few death warriors in the Yun clan to disregard the Gourd City's city lord's manners ban and kill enemies in the city. After returning to Miling's residence, Xiaolingyu naturally went into seclusion to recover from his injuries. Although his wives were very concerned, they didn't disturb Xiaolingyu. They had long since gotten used to Xiaolingyu being injured. In the past, this was a rare occurrence. When they heard from Miling that Xiaolingyu had killed the Yun clan's third young master, they didn't take it to heart. They had long since gotten used to Xiaolingyu causing trouble and killing people. Miaoying even said, "Didn't he just kill the young master of a small clan in a small city? Is that even a big deal?" Miling felt helpless towards Xiaolingyu's wives' reactions. He could guess that Xiaolingyu must have had a glorious past before he ascended. Otherwise, how could he have so many talented wives? How could his wives all be so proud and confident? However, the past only represented the past. How were they supposed to deal with the difficulties in front of them? Miling could only frown bitterly by himself. Less than 3 days after his return, the Sang clan finally sent someone over. The person who came was a steward of the Sang clan. His posture wasn't high, and his tone was very amiable. The Sang clan steward left behind a storage pouch, then said a few polite words before leaving the residence. The Sang clan was very generous. There were 20,000 yang crystals in the storage pouch, as well as several hundred life pearls from sea beasts. According to the previous agreement, Xiaolingyu and Miling would be lucky to receive more than 1,000 yang crystals. However, they had fought for the Sang clan on the deck of the ship. Even if the profits from this voyage were almost all used up by the Black Iron ship, the Sang clan couldn't really give them 2,000 or 3,000 yang crystals. In fact, the reason they were able to receive so many yang crystals and life pearls was because they had rendered meritorious service to the Sang clan, and also because Xiaolingyu had killed Yunemo. With so many yang crystals, Miling's gloomy expression improved slightly. He handed the storage pouch over to Xiaolingyu. Chapter 794. He had obtained 80,000 yang crystals not long after arriving at the world of immortals, and he still had more than half of them left. Adding the 10,000 yang crystals that he had split with Miling, it was enough for his wives and friends to cultivate for quite some time. As for the few hundred life pearls, Miling naturally didn't take any of them because they weren't of high quality. After all, most of the credit for obtaining so many yang crystals and life pearls should be given to Xiaolingyu. Now, Xiaolingyu had no choice but to consider the problem of his own cultivation. Ordinary cultivators could use yang crystals and life pearls to cultivate in the 9 heavens of immortals. As long as there were enough yang crystals and life pearls, coupled with years of comprehension and cultivation, one could reach the peak of the 9 heavens of immortals sooner or later. However, Xiaolingyu was currently at the 10th cycle chaos creation stage. In order to cultivate in this stage, one needed to strengthen the chaos origin force. In terms of realm, one needed to continuously strengthen one's understanding of the more profound chaos origin force. When he was in the God realm, Xiaolingyu had a set of cultivation methods that he had thoroughly researched long ago. At that time, he had an inner world and could draw upon the power of nature on a large scale, so it wasn't difficult for him to strengthen the Chaos Origin Force. However, he was still unable to communicate with the power of nature in the world of immortals. As a result, he couldn't use the method that he had designed in the God realm to increase his power. However, the increase of the soul realm was a very elusive and mysterious cultivation method, and there seemed to be no shortcuts. While recuperating, Xiaolingyu was also thinking hard. No matter where he went, the wind would not stop. Now that he had killed the Yun family's third young master, Yun Mo, the Yun family's revenge would definitely come soon. He couldn't continue to cultivate step by step because the Yun family would definitely not give him that much time. Before he finished sorting out the cultivation methods, the Yun family's revenge had already arrived. Less than a month after returning from the sea, Xiaolingyu's injuries hadn't stabilized yet. One night at midnight, the originally quiet courtyard suddenly trembled. Obviously, there were experts attacking the courtyard and trying to break the formation. Xiaolingyu and Meiling came out of the room. Xiaolingyu's wives and friends also went to the big tree in the middle of the courtyard. They clearly knew that there was a formation protecting this place, yet they still attacked. The other party must have a Nirvana realm expert. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to break through the formation in this house, Meiling said with a frown. Xiaolingyu didn't say anything. He took out some special materials and walked around the courtyard. Xiaolingyu also began to set up a formation. Her goal was naturally to reinforce and stabilize the original formation. When the house was attacked, the city guards who were patrolling the city quickly rushed over. Among the city guards, there were also Nirvana realm experts as commanders. Before they approached the house, they had already locked onto the few black-clothed cultivators with their divine sense. Although the mansion's array formation had already been breached, a group of over 30 city guards had already arrived before the mansion. The battle immediately began. The city guards had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. The black-clothed cultivators had no choice but to retreat. However, they were chased down by the city guards. The commotion here was huge. Just as one wave of city guards chased down the black-clothed cultivators, another wave of city guards quickly arrived and surrounded the house. Luckily, the city guards reacted quickly. Meiling finally relaxed. If the city guards had come a little later, all of the cultivators in the house would have died. With the Yun family's wealth, it shouldn't be difficult to bribe the city guards. Xiaolingyu was a little confused. If he was the one who carried out the assassination, he would definitely bribe the city guards first and make them come a little later. It's not easy to bribe the city guards. The city guards of the Gourd City are all carefully selected, and they are only loyal to the City Lord Mansion. They only obey the orders of the City Guard Commander and the City Lord. Their treatment is not worse than that of the guards of the Yun family and the Sang family. Usually, they don't face too many difficulties, especially the commander-level city guards. Most of them are Nirvana realm warriors. They won't easily accept bribes from any forces in the city. If the city guard can be easily bribed, how can the city lord's estate not worry? Meiling shook his head and smiled. Xiaolingyu nodded with understanding, and then he asked, "How many Rebirth Realm experts does the Cloud Clan and Sang Clan possess?" Meiling replied, "I'm not sure about that. However, a conservative estimate is that the two families have at least 5 Nirvana Realm experts, but definitely not more than 10. The City Lord's estate doesn't have many Nirvana Realm experts, but the City Lord and the City Guard Commander are extremely powerful. The two of them are enough to intimidate all the forces on Gourd Island. In fact, there is a ban in Gourd City, which is that Nirvana Realm experts are not allowed to fight in the city. This ban is even stricter than the ban on fighting on the surface. If large forces like the Yun and Sang families dare to fight or bully ordinary cultivators in the city lord's estate and the city guards may ignore it. However, if a Nirvana Realm expert fights in the city, the city lord's estate and the city guards will hunt him down. At this moment, even if the city lord hasn't made a move, the commander must have received the news. In that case, the Yun family will have to pay a big price for their revenge. Xiaolingyu smiled. Gourd City is actually controlled by a large force from the inland. They won't be afraid of the Yun family. Meiling nodded. The city guards outside surrounded the house until dawn before retreating. A Nirvana realm expert from the city lord's estate set up the broken formation and restriction in the house again. The expert didn't say anything. After setting up the formation and restriction, he quietly left. When the sky brightened, the steward of the Awakening God Tower also came. When he heard that the enmity between Xiaolingyu and the Yun family had deepened, his pale face didn't have much of a change in expression. Instead, he helped to strengthen the restrictions and formations in the courtyard. Although the Yun family's revenge ended in failure, it also showed the intensity and determination of the Yun family's revenge. Even a Nirvana realm expert was mobilized. It was clear that the Yun family was determined to obtain this house. After this failure, they might dare to come again. The next time they came, there would be even more experts. In a secret room deep in the Yun family estate, the Yun family patriarch's expression was very gloomy. He just received news that the men of sacrifice sent by the Yun family, including the Nirvana realm expert, were all killed by the city guard. These men of sacrifice were secretly trained by the Yun family. They didn't appear in Gourd City, so the Yun family wasn't worried that the city guards would come looking for trouble. "Father, I'm afraid that revenge like this will not make up for the losses," the Yun family's second young master said. "Yun Jiang, do you have any good suggestions?" the Yun family patriarch asked. "Father, I feel that this matter can only be slowly planned. Don't cause too much trouble in the city. Although the city lord's estate doesn't have evidence of us taking action, they will definitely suspect us. They might even think that this is our Yun family's doing. This will definitely make the city lord's estate feel that our Yun family is too presumptuous and we don't care about them," Yun Jiang replied. "Hee, second brother's words are equivalent to not saying anything. Third brother died so tragically. If our Yun family can't even get rid of the culprit, I'm afraid that more and more cultivators from Gourd Island will attack our Yun family outside the city in the future." Yun Hai was also in the secret room. He then said to his father, "Father, I feel that our Yun family can't stop because we want everyone to know and see the truth. If anyone dares to go against our Yun family, even if they hide in the city, our Yun family will dare to and can withstand the pressure from the city lord's estate and the city guards to kill them. Only then will we be able to intimidate those with evil intentions and not let the Sang family see us as a joke." His two sons' words made sense. The Yun family patriarch was in a difficult position. However, the one who was killed was his most beloved son. Under the burning hatred, he was more inclined to the opinion of his eldest son, Yun Hai. "We've already lost a Nirvana realm cultivator today. If we continue to attack, even if we can successfully kill the culprit, we'll lose another Nirvana realm cultivator. If another accident happens, we'll become a joke to other families. If we fail today, the city lord's estate will definitely increase the security of that residence. Father, please reconsider." Yun family's second young master, Yun Jiang, said very rationally. After all, he was the patriarch of the Yun family and had to consider the future of the Yun family. The patriarch of the Yun family, who had just lost his beloved son, finally calmed down quite a bit. At this moment, he even had a thought. His second son was more suitable to take over his position than his eldest son. The patriarch of the Yun family's expression fluctuated. After muttering to himself for a long time, he said, "Let's let that scoundrel be free for a while. Send someone to keep a close eye on him. As long as he leaves that residence, we have to completely grasp his every move. If he dares to leave the city..." After waiting for a few years in Meiling's residence, Xiao Lingyu gradually relaxed. The Yun family's fiercer revenge that he imagined didn't come. At present, there were still a few dozen years until the awakening God Tower's shift. When he had nothing to do, Xiao Lingyu would naturally discuss matters of cultivation with Meiling, his wives, and friends. From Meiling, his wives, and friends, Xiao Lingyu learned that the reason why absorbing the life pearls of those demonic beasts could increase one's cultivation level was because those life pearls contained the demonic beasts' comprehension of the laws of heaven and earth, and the laws of nature. If a cultivator at the 5th celestial layer of longevity wanted to advance to the 6th celestial layer of longevity, he would need 6 yang attribute and 6 moon attribute life pearls. With so many life pearls that were higher than the cultivator's current cultivation level, it was naturally enough to greatly increase the cultivator's soul realm. Those demonic beasts in the realm of longevity, whether they were sea beasts, ferocious beasts, or flying beasts, all cultivated for a very long time. Even if their intelligence wasn't high, such a long period of time allowed them to have a certain degree of comprehension of the laws of heaven and earth. And those comprehensions were also useful to cultivators. Chapter 795. As for the increase in power, it was impossible to rely solely on the energy in the Yang crystal. Chaos origin power contained yin and yang, and the energy in the Yang crystal was pure Yang energy. It couldn't even be converted into chaos origin power, let alone the higher grade chaos origin power. The space in the world of immortals was the same as the lower realms. It was filled with chaos origin power, and its grade wasn't low. Although it was very slow to increase his cultivation by absorbing the chaos origin power in the world of immortals, it was the only way for Xiao Lingyu to increase his power. As his realm increased, the space that his divine sense could cover would increase, and the natural power that he could communicate with would increase, which would also speed up the increase in his power. But no matter what, this kind of step-by-step cultivation was too slow, and it wasn't suitable for him. Dozens of years passed in a flash. During this time, Xiao Lingyu had been recuperating, and everyone was peacefully staying in the courtyard. Although the Yun family's revenge didn't come again, it was like a heavy cloud pressing down on everyone's head, and no one dared to be careless. It was time for Xiao Lingyu and Meiling to work. The two of them left the courtyard together and headed towards the Awakening God Tower. The courtyard wasn't far from the Awakening God Tower, but when they were halfway there, someone blocked their path. The person who came was the Yun family's young master, Yun Hai. He blocked the path and pointed at Xiao Lingyu, saying, "Thief, do you dare to fight with me?" Yun Hai was a Nirvana realm expert, and he was considered the leader of the younger generation in Gourd City. His strength was extraordinary. The so-called younger generation referred to cultivators who ascended or were born less than 100 million years ago. Idiot! Xiao Lingyu disdainfully cursed in his heart, then ignored Yun Hai and walked around him without changing his expression. Yun Hai kept following him, and he kept provoking and even insulting him, but Xiao Lingyu didn't care at all. Today's insults would be returned 1,000 times in the future. It was impossible for him to be stupid enough to fight with him one-on-one. This was not a fair duel at all. Xiao Lingyu was at most at the 8th celestial layer of longevity. How could she fight a Nirvana realm expert alone? The Yun family had originally arranged for Nirvana realm death warriors to keep an eye on Xiao Lingyu. Once she came out of the house, they would attack and kill her. However, the Nirvana realm death warriors of the Yun family discovered that there were other experts standing guard as well. It was obvious that they were guarding against the death warriors of the Yun family. Actually, it wasn't accurate to say that they were secretly protecting her. It was possible that they were using Xiao Lingyu as bait to wait for the Yun family's men of sacrifice to come to their deaths. In the eyes of the Yun clan members, those hidden experts were most likely from the Sang clan. Therefore, the men of sacrifice of the Yun family did not act rashly. Even if they were men of sacrifice, they could not die in vain. After working in the Awakening God Tower for 10 years, Xiao Lingyu had awakened many cultivators, and her soul realm had improved a little. Originally, his soul realm was comparable to the peak of the 5th celestial layer of longevity. After 2 shifts, it was comparable to the 6th celestial layer of longevity. Although there was some improvement, the improvement was not big. It did not increase his overall strength by much. After all, his true realm was the middle stage of the 10th revolution chaotic creation realm. Only when he reached the late stage of the creation realm could he be considered to have made more progress. Yun Hai followed them all the way until Xiao Lingyu and Meiling entered the Awakening God Tower. Only then did he leave angrily. After working for 10 years, Xiao Lingyu and Meiling were called to a room on the 3rd floor by the manager. After the manager had Xiao Lingyu and Meiling sit down, he calmly said to Xiao Lingyu, "I called you here today for 2 things. First, in view of your strength and proficiency in the awakening technique, you will be promoted to a high-level awakening master. In the future, you will be treated the same as Meiling. The next time you work, you will come to the 3rd floor." "Brother Xiao, congratulations." Meiling immediately congratulated him. The Awakening Masters in the Awakening God Tower were only divided into beginner and advanced levels. Now Meiling knew that although Xiao Lingyu had just ascended for more than 200 years, his strength was far greater than his. It was normal for him to be promoted. Xiao Lingyu's expression did not change much. Even if he was a high-level Awakening Master, the benefits were not high. However, he still cupped his fists and thanked the manager. "The second thing is a private matter of mine. I need the 2 of you to help me," the manager continued. "Sir's matter is our matter. Sir, please tell us what to do." Meiling was very sincere. It did not seem like he was flattering because for many years, the manager had really taken care of him. He had even lent him a lot of yang crystals when he bought the house. Last time, when the house was attacked, the manager went to reinforce the house's restrictions. This time, he made an exception and promoted Xiao Lingyu to a high-level awakening master. It could be said that Xiao Lingyu owed him a lot. Naturally, he would not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire for him. Although it is a private matter of mine, if it is completed, it will also be greatly beneficial to the 2 of you. The manager's face was still as pale as paper. He stared at Xiao Lingyu and Meiling, seemingly hesitant. After a long time, he said, "I want the 2 of you to go out to sea." Hearing the first half of this sentence, Meiling's heart relaxed. Wasn't it just going out to sea? It was no big deal. "Help me hunt a moon attribute sea beast in the Nirvana soul realm and bring back its life pearl." However, the second half of this sentence stunned Meiling. Xiao Lingyu also frowned. "Sir, with our cultivation, hunting a moon attribute sea beast is no different from suicide. How can we hunt a Nirvana soul realm sea beast? Sir must be prepared, right?" Meiling asked. "Of course. Since I want the 2 of you to go, there must be more than a 50% chance of success. Even if you fail, I can guarantee that you 2 will come back alive." As the steward spoke, he took out a stack of triangular black flags and said, "These flags can be used to set up a very powerful flag formation. Once the formation is set up, any demonic beast that hasn't reached the Nirvana soul stage will die for sure if they enter. You just need to find a small island to set up the array and lure the target there." It was easy to say, but Xiao Lingyu and Meiling both knew that even if the flag array was as powerful as the manager said, the process of luring a Nirvana soul realm sea beast would be extremely dangerous. Also, who could guarantee that the sea beast would rush into the flag array and die? The manager said, "To be honest, I was seriously injured a long time ago. If I continue to endure, I'm afraid my injuries will worsen. That's why I asked the 2 of you to help me. After all, you 2 are the only people I can trust in this city. Are the 2 of you willing to help me this time?" "Sir, don't worry. The 2 of us won't disappoint you. Myling was a righteous person, so he firmly agreed. Xiaoling Yu could only nod. The manager said very generously, "After this is done, I'll give you this set of flags and 500,000 yang crystals." Myling secretly clicked his tongue. Xiaoling Yu looked at the set of flags with sparkling eyes. "It's very difficult to find a Nirvana realm sea beast in the inner sea of Gourd Bay, and the outer sea is too dangerous. That's why I suggest you search near the Lost Trace Island. If you can't find one nearby, then you might as well search inside the Lost Trace Islands," the manager continued. "Although the two of us have the experience of successfully escaping from the Lost Trace Islands, we also had Uncle Tuo with us. He was also the one who brought us out. Hee. I have a way to ensure that you won't lose your way." The steward smiled and continued, "Actually, the strangeness of the bewildering maze sea has already been solved. Cultivators who are driving boats or flying in the bewildering maze sea, whether it is their spiritual sense or vision, there is no restriction. The bewildering maze sea also doesn't have any natural formation covering it. It's just that after entering, whether it's the boat or the cultivators themselves, they will all be affected by an invisible strange force. This strange force isn't strong, but it can cause everyone's path to deviate. Because the deviation is very small, everyone hasn't noticed it for a long time. But after traveling in the bewildering maze sea for a long time, that slight deviation is enough to make everyone feel lost. As long as you adjust your path every once in a while, you won't get lost. That deviation is also towards the depths of the Lost Trace Island. After entering, you just have to adjust your path towards the periphery of the Lost Trace Island. So it's like that. Then why hasn't this matter been spread?" Myling nodded and asked, "Once you know of this method, will you pass it on to those unrelated cultivators?" the steward asked in return. Of course not." Myling laughed dryly. "If that's the case, then there is still something strange in the Lost Trace Islands. Even if there isn't a natural formation, there should be other special existences. That strange force can't just appear out of nowhere." Xiaoling Yu continued. "Where that strange force comes from, we haven't found out yet. Or rather, there are powerful cultivators who have found out but haven't said anything," the manager replied. "Then how do we get out of the city? The Yun clan is watching us very closely." Myling asked again. "This is very simple. In our Awakened God Tower, there is a small teleportation formation that can teleport you all out of the city," the manager said casually. "There is a teleportation formation in the tower?" Myling was very surprised. "There is, but this formation is usually used when the city is robbed or when the Awakened God Tower is besieged. This is to allow the awakened spirit cultivators of the Awakened God Tower to escape from the dangerous situation." The manager nodded and said, "This formation can teleport you all to the center of the Gourd Bay Inner Sea. It can also save you a lot of time on the road. Go back and inform your friends and family in the courtyard first. Then you can teleport out of the sea." Xiaoling Yu and Myling went back, but when they arrived at the Awakened God Tower, there was one more person. The extra person was Ling Er. Xiaoling Yu wanted to bring her out to see this time. The manager didn't say anything. He opened a secret room on the 3rd floor that even Myling didn't know about and brought everyone in. There was indeed a simple teleportation formation in the secret room. However, even a simple formation was extremely mysterious to ordinary cultivators. There was a hexagonal starlight formation on the ground. At the top of the hexagons, there was a special stone pillar that stood tall. The stone pillar was silver gray and was engraved with runes. Chapter 796. In the depths of the Calabash Bay's inner sea, a small boat that was as blue as the sea was sailing through the wind and waves. The small boat was no more than 10 feet long and 3 feet wide. Although it was not as grand and majestic as the big boats of the Sang and Yun families, its entire body seemed to be made of blue crystals. It looked magnificent, and its color was the same as the seawater, making it somewhat invisible. It was also nimble. The boat was small, so it did not consume much energy. In any case, there were only 3 people on the boat, so there was no need for a big boat. The 3 people on the boat were naturally Xiaolingyu, Meiling, and Ling. They had been sailing the small boat for more than 3 months. I still don't understand. Why didn't the steward come here himself? In the past 3 months, Meiling had asked this question more than once. When he was talking to the steward in the Awakening of the Gods Tower, Meiling did not hesitate at all. However, he still had some doubts in private. The steward is injured, so it's probably not convenient for him to go out to sea. Or perhaps his injuries are too severe, so he can't use force even if he goes out to sea, Xiaolingyu guessed. Brother Xiao, this sister-in-law Ling has just ascended, so her cultivation is still weak. Although it's not that dangerous to go out to sea, it will definitely be very dangerous. Why did you bring sister-in-law Ling here? Meiling asked in confusion. Haha, I brought her out to sightsee. The scenery in the Calabash Bay's inner sea is not bad, Xiaolingyu said with a smile. Ling was indifferent to Meiling's disdain. Although she had already become Xiaolingyu's woman, she still stood behind Xiaolingyu out of habit like a servant girl. However, her indifferent and ethereal demeanor did not make her look like a servant girl. Instead, she looked more like an extremely powerful bodyguard. Meiling could only roll his eyes and did not pursue the matter. After interacting with Xiaolingyu for a while, Meiling could tell that Xiaolingyu was very cautious and meticulous. Of all the wives he had chosen to bring Linger instead of sightseeing. He felt that Xiaolingyu must have plotted something. In fact, Meiling had already been to the Bewildering Sea region twice. The entire Gourd Bay's inner sea wasn't like the Bewildering Sea region where people would get lost. Naturally, Meiling knew the route to the Bewildering Sea region. However, Xiaolingyu did not let Meiling sail directly to the Lost Islands. Instead, after a year at sea, she let the boat dock at a nameless island. This island was actually not too far away from the outer sea of Gourd Bay. Ships rarely passed by here, and even fewer cultivators came out to hunt. After the boat docked on the island, Xiaolingyu took out the stack of formation flags the manager of the Awakening God Pavilion gave him and began to set it up according to the method. In response to Meiling's question, Xiaolingyu explained, before going to the Bewildering Sea region, it's better to familiarize yourself with this flag formation so that you won't panic. If you're lucky, you might be able to find a Nirvana Soul Stage sea beast without going to the Bewildering Sea region. As a Formation Dao expert, although this flag array was very brilliant, Xiaolingyu had only studied it for less than half a year before he grasped the method of setting up the array. This flag formation was called the 8-faced Nirvana Flame Sealing Formation, and the formation flags used to set up the formation had a type of Nirvana flame sealed within them. Even though every single type of Nirvana flame couldn't be considered to be very formidable, it had the advantage of being numerous in number. Moreover, its might could be overlapped, and it did indeed possess the might to seal and annihilate sea beasts at the Rebirth Realm. However, Xiaolingyu wasn't a Nirvana Realm cultivator. He could only maintain this formation for 2 hours. Any longer and he would suffer a backlash from the formation. Xiaolingyu had never seen a Nirvana Soul Stage sea beast before, so he wasn't sure if the 8-sided Nirvana Fire Sealing Formation could really deal with one. It was also very difficult for him to find a Nirvana Soul Stage sea beast in the vast sea to test it out. Xiaolingyu wasn't someone in a hurry to succeed. After spending so much time in the primal chaos spectrum, he had become very patient. Even though he had mastered the method of setting up the formation and could control it, Xiaolingyu still wasn't in a hurry to go to the Bewildering Sea region. Instead, he continued to set up the formation on an island near the outer sea. With the help of this flag formation, he and Meiling had more and more sea beasts' fate pearls in their bags of holding. There were very few cultivators hunting in the vast sea near the outer sea, so there were more sea beasts here. Most of them were at least at the 6th celestial layer of the immortal life stage. Even without using the formation, Xiaolingyu could easily kill any sea beast below the 9th celestial layer of the immortal life stage. If he encountered a 9th celestial layer of the immortal life stage sea beast, he only needed to lure it into the flag formation to easily kill it. No matter what cultivation level the sea beast was, as long as Xiaolingyu encountered it, he would kill it first. In any case, his friends and family needed the fate pearls of low-level sea beasts. Another 10 years passed and Xiaolingyu finally found a Nirvana realm sea beast. Because the sea beast's cultivation level was far below the Nirvana realm, Xiaolingyu and Meiling couldn't see the exact cultivation level of the sea beast. They could only tell that it was at the Nirvana realm from the Nirvana fire it spat out. However, the Nirvana realm sea beast was very cautious. When it got close to the island, it seemed to sense the dangerous aura on the island, so it didn't get on the island for a long time. Ling go and try. See if you can lure it over, Xiaolingyu said to Ling on the island. Brother Xiao, let me go. Sister-in-law Ling-er's cultivation level is too low. It's too risky for her to go out like this, Meiling immediately suggested. Haha, don't worry, brother me. She'll definitely be safer than you. Xiaolingyu smiled confidently. At this moment, Ling had already made his move. However, as soon as he left the island, he mysteriously disappeared into the sea. Invisibility spell? Meiling said in surprise. Not long after, Ling appeared again. He was not far away from the sea beast and had been targeted by the Nirvana realm sea beast. Roar! The Nirvana realm sea beast opened its bloody mouth, and a ray of fire shone out. However, at this moment, Ling mysteriously disappeared again. In the next moment, the sea beast's Nirvana true fire swept past the place where Ling had disappeared, but it missed. After a while, Ling appeared elsewhere. The Nirvana realm sea beast quickly turned around, but Ling disappeared again. Just like this, the Nirvana realm sea beast was teased by Ling. It was led by the nose and gradually became angry. Unknowingly, it was brought to the island by Ling. Xiaolingyu, who had been waiting for a long time, shouted loudly. He used the hand seals and incantations that he had prepared beforehand and activated the 8-sided Nirvana fire sealing array. Suddenly, a few towering banners appeared on the island. The black banners trembled and strong Nirvana true fire spewed out, instantly turning the island into an island of fire. The sea beast should have just entered the Nirvana realm not long ago. It only lasted for less than 100 breaths of time in the array before it gradually lost the strength to struggle and finally collapse. Xiaolingyu gradually weakened the power of the array. When the sea beast's body was burned to ashes, he put away the array flags. Meiling went to put away the Nirvana realm sea beast's life pearl with a face full of excitement. It was not the first time he had seen a Nirvana realm life pearl, but it was the first time he had grasped a Nirvana realm life pearl. Moreover, half of this life pearl belonged to him. What realm was that sea beast in? Xiaolingyu asked. Judging from its life pearl, it should have just entered the body realm, Meiling replied. The gap between the body realm and the Nirvana soul realm is not small, Xiaolingyu said with a frown. In any case, we just have to try our best. If we can't do it, our own safety is the most important. This 8-faced Nirvana flame sealing formation can at least trap a Nirvana soul realm sea beast for a while. At most, we'll just have to give up on the flag array and escape, Meiling said with a relaxed tone. No matter what, they had to give it a try. Facing a Nirvana soul realm sea beast was very likely to be an accident, so before that, it was better to use this set of flags to kill more sea beasts and obtain more life pearls. If they really couldn't complete the mission, they would give more life pearls to the Lord Steward when they returned. In the next 20 years, Xiaolingyu, Meiling, and Ling traveled to the Lost Islands while using the 8-faced Nirvana flame sealing formation to hunt sea beasts' life pearls. During this time, they didn't encounter any accidents. After 35 years, Xiao Lingyu's group of 3 finally arrived at the Lost Islands. The Lost Islands were shrouded in fog as usual, so there were very few cultivators or ships that came close. They still didn't directly go in. The 3 of them wandered around the Lost Islands to try their luck. After circling the Bewilderment Archipelago for a few years and obtaining 2 Rebirth Realm Fate Pearls and countless Longevity Realm Fate Pearls, Xiao Lingyu finally decided to enter the Bewilderment Archipelago to look for Moon Attribute Soul Annihilation Sea Beasts. Soul Nirvana Sea Beasts were already rare in the Gourd Bay, and Moon Attribute Soul Nirvana Sea Beasts were also very rare. With the 2 factors combined, Xiao Lingyu's chances of finding Moon Attribute Soul Nirvana Sea Beasts outside the Lost Islands were too slim. Even if they were to search in the Lost Islands, they would need to be very lucky. Just like last time, when they first entered the Lost Islands, they only encountered Immortal Realm Sea Beasts. Xiao Lingyu's group of 3 slowly moved deeper into the sea. Before they found a Nirvana Realm Sea Beast, Ling Er suddenly said to Xiao Lingyu, "There are some strange energy fluctuations on that small island." Following Ling Er's direction, Xiao Lingyu slowly steered the small boat towards that small island. After boarding the small island, Xiao Lingyu wasn't in a hurry to find the strange situation on the small island. Instead, she first set up the 8-sided Nirvana Flame Ceiling Formation. After setting up the formation, she walked into the small island under Ling Er's guidance. After an hour, Ling Er stopped in front of a small mountain in the middle of the small island. She said, "The strange energy fluctuations are in this small mountain." "Strange, why can't I feel anything?" Myling said in astonishment. "If you could feel it, I wouldn't have brought her here." Chapter 797. The cave was very long and winding. After going more than 1,000 feet deep, Xiao Lingyu suddenly frowned. He stopped and reminded, "There should be a powerful monster ahead. I'll go take a look first." As Ling Er spoke, her body had already disappeared in a flash. "Sister Ling Er's ability is too powerful," Myling praised sincerely. At first, Myling didn't understand why Xiao Lingyu would bring Ling Er, who was only at the 2nd firmament of longevity stage, along. Now, he naturally understood. Even he felt that if they wanted to successfully complete this mission, they would have to rely on Ling Er. However, Xiao Lingyu and Myling were uncertain and worried about whether Ling Er could become invisible in front of a sea monster at the Nirvana Soul stage. Not long after, a powerful aura surged out from the depths of the cave, followed by the roar of a monster. "Oh no, it's a Nirvana Realm monster." Myling's expression changed drastically when he felt the powerful aura. "Retreat." Xiao Lingyu made a prompt decision and retreated out of the cave at full speed. As for Ling Er, who was still in the depths of the cave, Xiao Lingyu and Myling didn't have to worry too much. After exiting the cave, Xiao Lingyu immediately made a hand seal and chanted an incantation. In just 10 breaths, a monster with an extremely long body like a crocodile pounced out of the cave. Ling Er's body immediately appeared 1,000 feet away from the entrance of the cave. The crocodile monster charged straight out. Its body was as black as a steel plate, and it shot towards Ling Er like an iron arrow. However, Ling Er disappeared in the next moment, causing the crocodile monster to miss. Xiao Lingyu activated the 8-sided Nirvana Fire Ceiling Formation at this moment. Rolling flames surged like a tide and instantly filled the entire island. However, all of its power was concentrated on the crocodile demonic beast. Ling Er quickly returned to Xiao Lingyu's side and quietly looked at the crocodile demon beast in the sea of fire. The crocodile demon beast was indeed an existence at the rebirth realm, and the defensive strength of its scales wasn't weak at all. Even if it was incinerated by strands of rebirth flames, it didn't show any signs of being injured on the spot. Instead, it was constantly moving about madly within the formation while ceaselessly spitting out its own rebirth flames to attack in all directions. It was obvious that it didn't have a deep understanding of array Dao. Its attacks were chaotic and didn't have much impact on the 8-sided Nirvana flame sealing array. Under the siege of the rebirth flames, it was unable to find the path to return to the cave, nor was it able to charge out, and it gradually became irritable as it repeatedly emitted waves of furious roars. However, its irritation and furious roars were of no use. It persisted for the time it took to brew a cup of tea before the hard scales on its body began to melt and dense black smoke began to rise from its body. After another 10 minutes, the crocodile demon beast's body was finally completely melted under the burning of various true nirvana flames. The strange thing was that even though its body was gradually melting, it actually persisted until the end. Even though its body had completely disappeared, it was actually still alive. However, only a strangely shaped heart was left behind. The heart's shape was strange, yet it seemed to be crystal clear. It was like a large, shining gem. So it's at the Nirvana heart realm. Its life pearl is wrapped in its heart. Myling's eyes flickered as he said, "The heart of a Nirvana heart realm demonic beast is an extremely good material for refining pills. Even if it's not used for refining pills, it's still very beneficial to directly consume it. It would be a pity to burn it and destroy it." Xiaoling Yu didn't reply. Instead, he continued to maintain the formation's might and incinerate the demon beast's heart. Only when the heart showed signs of melting did he stop the formation. Then, he walked over to the heart, formed a seal, and put it into a jade box. From the energy fluctuations of this heart, it should be of the moon attribute. A moon attribute life pearl of the Nirvana heart realm is 10 times more valuable than a yang attribute one. Myling said with a little excitement. There shouldn't be any other powerful sea beasts on the island. If there were, such a big movement would have alarmed them long ago. Xiaoling Yu's expression was indifferent. After speaking, he led Myling and Ling Er back into the cave. For the sake of safety, Ling Er hid himself and led the way in front. Xiaoling Yu and Myling followed behind slowly. Indeed, they didn't encounter any more demonic beasts. Everyone walked for nearly 10,000 feet without any hindrance and arrived at the belly of the mountain. The belly of the mountain was empty, and there were hard and cold stone walls on all sides. To everyone's surprise, there were countless sparkling rocks on the stone wall. Waves of incomparably pure moon attribute energy were surging within the belly of the mountain. No wonder there is a moon attribute nirvana realm demonic beast here. It turns out there are so many moon crystals, Myling said in amazement. Moon crystals were energy crystals like yang crystals. However, yang crystals were very common and easy to obtain in the world of immortals. Moon crystals were very rare, just like how yang attribute demonic beasts were very easy to find, but moon attribute demonic beasts were very difficult to find. A moon attribute life pearl could be exchanged for 10 yang attribute life pearls of the same grade. Moreover, a cultivator had to be willing to exchange for it. The value of a moon crystal was 10 times that of a yang crystal. Moon crystals are difficult to form. Why are there so many of them gathered together? Myling was very suspicious. Why do you care so much? Let's hurry up and collect all these moon crystals. Xiaoling Yu was more straightforward. He didn't think too much and immediately flew into the belly of the mountain. Then, he used the life-affirming dagger to pry out the moon crystals on one of the stone walls. Myling and Ling also followed closely behind and started to get busy. The stone walls of the belly of the mountain were at least 10,000 feet high. They should extend deep into the ground. The moon crystals on the stone walls were densely packed and innumerable. Moreover, they had to be removed piece by piece. Of course, it was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Unknowingly, the sky of the Lost Islands gradually darkened. The 9 blazing suns hanging high in the sky were replaced by 9 silver disc-shaped moons. The strange thing was that as the moon crystals continued to disappear, the entire belly of the mountain should be getting darker and darker. However, when night came, it became brighter and brighter. The deeper they looked into the belly of the mountain, the brighter it became. Xiaolingyu and the other two were somewhat puzzled. They temporarily stopped digging out the moon crystals and descended into the depths of the mountain. I feel that there is an incomparably pure moon attribute energy gathering in the belly of the mountain from all directions, Meiling said as he descended. When he was still 1,000 feet away from the bottom of the mountain, Xiaolingyu saw that on the ground at the bottom of the mountain where rocks were piled up, there was a strange pattern that was covered by the rocks. It was slowly flowing, and there was an obvious aura of a spirit array that was overflowing from it. Xiaolingyu didn't land on the ground. He only released his divine sense and moved the rocks away. Then, he saw a formation engraved on the ground. After looking at it for a while, Xiaolingyu said with narrowed eyes, "The reason why so many moon crystals can be gathered here is most likely related to this formation. This formation is definitely not formed naturally. It should have been set up by a powerhouse. It is probably used to create moon crystals," Meiling said with a nod. Xiaolingyu muttered to himself for a while. Then, he began to study it. Meiling and Ling continued to dig out moon crystals from the stone walls. It took nearly a month for all the moon crystals on the stone walls of the mountain to be dug out. After a quick calculation, they realized that they had obtained nearly 200,000 moon crystals this time. This was undoubtedly a windfall for all of them, who weren't rich at all. If they sold 200,000 moon crystals, it wouldn't be a problem to exchange them for 2 million yang crystals. If they were in urgent need of moon crystals and were rich, they could sell them for at least 500,000 yang crystals. Meiling was very happy. He couldn't hide the excitement on his face. Ling on the other hand, was still as indifferent as ever. Xiaolingyu was still studying the array diagram on the ground. Even though his cultivation in array Dao was not bad, he could only barely remember the patterns of the array diagram and the way the patterns flowed. He could not grasp the gist of it and could not comprehend it. Actually, you don't need to study it thoroughly. You can just take away the formation and the stone slabs on the ground, Meiling suggested. We can try. Xiaolingyu then did as he was told. However, to his and Meiling's disappointment, just as he used the life-severing dagger to pry up the ground, the formation that had been there for an unknown number of years and hadn't been taken care of by a cultivator for an unknown number of years suddenly collapsed into nothingness. The moon attribute energy that had gathered in the mountain seemed to have lost control. It crazily rushed out of the cave and overflowed from the small island. If I don't, I'll be doomed. Xiaolingyu didn't care too much. He then left the mountain and the cave with Meiling and Ling. Then, he put away the 8-faced nirvana flame sealing formation on the small island. This was only the edge of the Lost Trace Islands. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't encounter nirvana realm sea beasts. Therefore, after a short rest, the three of them continued to advance into the depths of the Lost Trace Islands. Of course, as they advanced, they naturally had to use the 8-faced nirvana flame sealing formation to obtain more life pearls from sea beasts. Even if they couldn't complete the task given by the Lord Steward, at least this trip wasn't in vain. At most, they could return most of what they obtained to the Lord Steward. However, since they had been entrusted with this task, it would be best if they could hunt a Nirvana Soul Stage Moon Attribute Sea Beast. There were many Nirvana Realm Sea Beasts in the Lost Trace Islands. The last time they came, Uncle Tua seemed to have deliberately avoided those powerful sea beasts. However, this time, Xiaolingyu and the other two didn't know much about the Lost Trace Islands. Due to their lack of experience, they often encountered Nirvana Realm Sea Beasts. However, those Nirvana Realm Sea Beasts were basically in the Nirvana Realm or the Nirvana Heart Realm. After falling into the 8-faced Nirvana Flame sealing formation, they could only obediently hand over their life pearls. In fact, the reason why those large clans and forces could be so powerful and their disciples could progress so quickly was because they could often go out to sea like Xiao Lingyu and the other two. They would either use a large number of experts or use special formations and methods to wantonly hunt sea beasts after going out to sea. With enough life pearls from sea beasts, they would have enough yang crystals. Their disciples wouldn't lack the capital to cultivate and improve. Chapter 798. Xiao Lingyu's group of 3 weren't Nirvana realm cultivators, but they had to hunt Nirvana Soul Realm Moon Attribute Sea Beasts. Even with the help of the 8-sided Nirvana Flame Sealing Formation, it was still a bit difficult for them. They didn't dare to wander through the Lost Trace Islands recklessly, so they could only slowly advance into the depths of the islands. Every time they advanced a certain distance, the 3 of them would stop and find a small island to set up the 8-sided Nirvana Flame Sealing Formation. Then Ling would go out to search for their target. While searching for their targets, Ling relied on his powerful perception of energy fluctuations to find a lot of places with hidden treasures. These treasures were either collected in caves left behind by past cultivators or natural treasures formed by the heavens and earth. In any case, they had a bountiful harvest each time. When Ling found a place with hidden treasures and took all the treasures, Myling felt like he was dreaming. Not to mention when he was poor, even now, Myling's wealth was very ordinary. To be able to obtain so many life jewels and treasures in such a short period of time was something he could only dream of. He never thought that the scene in his dream would really appear in reality. He couldn't help but secretly rejoice that he had introduced Xiao Lingyu to the Awakened God Pavilion. Xiao Lingyu narrowed his eyes and said, "It looks like there were a lot of cultivators who settled down in the Lost Trace Islands to cultivate." Myling nodded and said, "It should be. Otherwise, where did all these caves come from? In that case, this bewildering maze sea shouldn't be like this in the past. It's just that there were some unforeseen events that caused this place to gradually become like today." Myling replied, "That's about right." Xiao Lingyu speculated, "There shouldn't be any problems on the surface of the Lost Trace Islands. The key to the problem should be in the depths of the sea or even at the bottom of the sea." Myling smiled and said, "Hee, this should be something those powerful cultivators consider. We don't have to worry about it. This is beyond our ability." Xiao Lingyu looked at Myling and said with a smile, "If you don't consider the things that experts consider, I'm afraid you'll fall into mediocrity for the rest of your life, and you won't be able to obtain great opportunities. As the saying goes, riches and honor come from danger. If one continued to silently cultivate like cultivators of the same level and painstakingly accumulate experience, not only would the time taken to cultivate be countless times longer, it might not be truly safe. The longer he cultivated, the more problems he would encounter. Who knew when he would be killed because he had angered an expert? In any realm, which expert relied on the accumulation of years and months of cultivation to reach the peak? Which expert didn't once experience things that ordinary cultivators didn't and didn't dare to experience when they were weak? Which expert didn't rely on great opportunities to reach the peak? Myling wrinkled his brows. After muttering to himself for a long time, he said, "That seems to be the case. The world of immortals is a multitude of living things, and there are countless immortal realm cultivators. Logically speaking, everyone doesn't have to worry about their lifespan. With endless lifespan, the number of cultivators in the world of immortals should be increasing. But take that gourd island for example. After countless years, the number of cultivators on that island hasn't increased by much. It seems like there have always been that many cultivators." Xiao Lingyu followed and said, "If the number of cultivators continues to accumulate without decreasing, the world of immortals will definitely lose its balance. One immortal realm cultivator might not occupy a lot of resources, but countless immortal realm cultivators will definitely consume a lot of resources every day. If this kind of continuous consumption without replenishment continues for a long time, even a realm like the world of immortals will collapse sooner or later. This is not allowed by the natural laws of heaven and earth. Therefore, the natural laws of heaven and earth will definitely eliminate a portion of the cultivators, or it can be said that a portion of them will be imperceptibly wiped out. The majority of this portion should be the weak ones, and a portion should be the strong ones. This should be a portion of the natural laws of heaven and earth. The fool thinks that when you reach the immortal realm, you can truly live forever. In reality, it's just a joke to think that you can live as long as heaven and earth when you reach the immortal realm. Only by constantly climbing up to the peak of strength can you have the possibility of being immortal and indestructible. Being unknown and honest won't last long. You still have to worry about being bullied by the strong. Rather than that, it's better to risk your life and make yourself a strong person. Haha, Brother Shao is still the one who sees things clearly. Myling seemed to have a feeling of seeing the sun after the clouds parted. His laughter actually became a bit more open-minded. Soon after, Myling's heart suddenly moved. Then, he sat down cross-legged. He sat down for close to 20 years. Myling actually didn't move at all in the same place, as if he had entered a mysterious state because of Xiao Lingyu's few words. 20 years later, Myling slowly opened his eyes. When he looked at Xiao Lingyu again, there was a bit more gratitude and admiration. Congratulations, Brother Mi, for successfully advancing to the 8th celestial layer. Xiao Lingyu cupped his fist and congratulated. I still have to thank Brother Xiao for your guidance. Myling also cupped his fist and bowed. Then, he said, this time, I've reached the 8th celestial layer. When I go back and supplement my cultivation with my life jewel, my cultivation will naturally break through. Understanding the natural laws of heaven and earth, just a little bit more is enough for us immortal realm cultivators to greatly improve. It's really incomparably mysterious and profound. Ordinary immortal realm cultivators would first cultivate to the peak of their realm and then supplement their life jewels with demonic beasts that were one level higher than them to seek a breakthrough. This time, Myling unexpectedly obtained an epiphany and raised his soul realm by a level. If it was in the past, Myling would definitely be happy for a long time after obtaining an unexpected breakthrough. However, after listening to Xiao Lingyu's words, his entire person was filled with fighting spirit, and there was a bit more ambition and dissatisfaction. During these years when Myling was raising his realm, Xiao Lingyu and Ling had to be by his side to guard him. Naturally, they didn't have any gains in terms of life jewels or treasures. However, although his wealth didn't continue to expand, his gains in other aspects were still not small. First of all, in terms of cultivation, because he could absorb the life jewels of demonic beasts below the nirvana realm without limit and absorb their energy and comprehension, Xiao Lingyu's realm was already not inferior to a 9th celestial layer cultivator. He could be considered to have reached the late 10th revolution chaotic creation realm. After all, he had previously obtained thousands of life jewels of demonic beasts above the 6th celestial layer. Just the life jewels of demonic beasts above the 9th celestial layer were absorbed by Xiao Lingyu. It was reasonable for him to be able to obtain such an improvement. Those demonic beasts' life jewels condensed the demonic beast's essence. Ordinary cultivators who absorbed demonic beasts' life jewels would not only improve their realm, but also their cultivation. However, the energy in those life jewels couldn't improve Xiao Lingyu's chaos origin force at all. Xiao Lingyu could only use it on his body to improve the quality of his body and enrich his life essence. The improvement of his realm was only one aspect. Apart from that, Xiao Lingyu also made another important discovery. Once when he paused his cultivation, he placed a piece of yang crystal and a piece of moon crystal in his hand to study. First, he calcined them with the primal chaos true fire, then corroded them with the chaos origin force, and finally added some special formations, which actually made him very surprised. The energy overflowing from the yang crystal and the moon crystal, which had been refined by many methods, could actually gradually fuse and form a very pure chaos origin force. This discovery made Xiaolingyu wild with joy, because it solved the problem of Xiaolingyu being unable to quickly improve his cultivation. Xiaolingyu finally studied it carefully and gradually understood. The yang crystal was clearly pure yang energy, while the moon crystal was actually yin energy. If the energy formed by the fusion of yin and yang wasn't chaos origin force, then what was it? It was just that this chaos origin force was actually chaos origin force, which made Xiaolingyu a little surprised. After studying it in depth, he figured out the reason. When Xiaolingyu was in the lower realm, when he wanted to create chaos origin force, he had to use his own chaos god force to fuse with the heaven and earth's mighty force. However, the immortal realm's yang crystal and moon crystal originally contained the heaven and earth's mighty force, so when they fused together, they could directly create chaos origin force. After all, the immortal realm was a higher realm than the immortal realm. The energy crystals here were naturally more special and of higher quality than those in the immortal realm. Xiaolingyu could also be considered to have understood another point, which was why the immortal realm's cultivators needed to rely on the yang crystal and moon crystal's life jewels that were one level higher than their own. It was because the yin and yang energy worked together to help the cultivators balance their state and realm, thus allowing them to advance steadily. However, the amount of chaos origin force that a yang crystal and a moon crystal could produce was too little. Adding on the fact that there wasn't much time, Xiaolingyu couldn't create too much chaos origin force, so his cultivation didn't increase by much. They had stayed on this small island for too long. After Myling woke up and familiarized himself with the immortal realm's 8th celestial layer, everyone continued to advance into the depths of the bewildering maze sea. Although there wasn't much time, Xiaolingyu was still very patient and continued to advance at a neither fast nor slow pace. Ling still acted as the vanguard. She found a lot of hidden treasures and the treasures inside were plundered. In the blink of an eye, another 30 years had passed. Everyone still hadn't found a Nirvana Soul Realm sea beast. However, Xiaolingyu and Myling's shift had come to an end. After hesitating for a long time, everyone still decided to go back first. Before they came, the Lord Manager had told them that they only had 100 years. If they didn't meet any targets or things that couldn't be done, everyone should quickly return. According to the method taught by the Lord Manager, everyone really easily left the bewildering maze sea. Then, they drove the blue boat at full speed towards Gourd Island. The blue boat's speed couldn't compare to the Yun and Sang family's ship. It took them nearly 15 years to reach the shore of Gourd Island. Putting away the boat, everyone took a detour and entered the city from the north gate of Gourd Island. The Yun family didn't know that Xiaolingyu had left the city. Naturally, they didn't think that Xiaolingyu would return from overseas. Therefore, Xiaolingyu and the other two entered the city very smoothly. They quickly arrived at the residence in the north of the city. The residence didn't change much. Miaoying and Xiaolingyu's wives and friends had been cultivating in their own rooms. In the years that Xiaolingyu went out to sea, the Yun family didn't try to attack the residence. However, the Lord Manager came to visit a few times. Chapter 799. On the third floor of the Awakening God Pavilion, inside the manager's room, Xiaolingyu and Myling silently stood before the manager's desk, quietly observing the pale-faced manager. Compared to 100 years ago, the steward seemed to have aged a little. Even though he was sitting calmly, his hands, which were placed on the desk, were trembling slightly. Xiaolingyu and Myling both frowned slightly. The manager gave them the feeling of a hero past his prime. It seemed like the manager was really in a precarious situation and was on the verge of death. His injuries must be very serious. If it wasn't for his injuries being too serious, he wouldn't have given the 8-sided Nirvana flame sealing formation to others, nor would he have let 2 cultivators who hadn't reached the Nirvana realm help him hunt a Nirvana soul stage moon attribute sea beast. He had no other choice. The 2 cultivators he had placed high hopes on had returned from the sea. Although they had gained a lot, they hadn't completed the most important task. I'm really gratified that you've gained so much from this trip. However, I believe you can see that I can't hold on for much longer. The manager's voice trembled a bit. An injury that could make a Nirvana realm cultivator's lips tremble while speaking was definitely fatal. Sir, is there no other way? The bewildering maze sea is too vast and dangerous. We can't go on a rampage there. Even if we try our best, it will be difficult to find a Nirvana soul stage moon attribute sea beast, Myling explained with difficulty. We need a Nirvana soul stage moon attribute fate pearl, but it doesn't have to be a sea beast. Other sea beasts are fine too. The manager pondered for a moment and said, right now, we can only go inland and buy one in a large city. If we go to the bewildering maze sea, even if we can find a Nirvana soul stage moon attribute sea beast, I'm afraid it will be too late. If you can buy it with yang crystals, that would be even better, Myling replied. However, a Nirvana soul realm yang fate pearl would require at least 2 million yang crystals to buy. A moon fate pearl would cost 10 times more than a yang fate pearl. Therefore, it would require more than 20 million yang crystals to buy a Nirvana soul realm moon fate pearl. However, I only have 8 million yang crystals here. The difference is too great. The steward smiled bitterly. The gap is really too big. Myling felt a little helpless. If it weren't for the fact that I didn't have enough yang crystals to buy them, why would I let you go to the bewildering sea to take the risk? Manager said with a gloomy face. During our trip to the Mystic Maze Sea, we obtained 200,000 moon crystals, which can be exchanged for more than 2 million yang crystals. The life jewels of other Nirvana realm and Immortality realm experts can also be exchanged for more than 2 million yang crystals. In total, we have nearly 13 million yang crystals. Xiao Lingyu interjected. Even so, we are still short by 7 million yang crystals. Moreover, 20 million yang crystals is a conservative estimate. The steward frowned. I can sell my house. It should be able to sell for 3 million yang crystals now, Myling said very righteously. If you sell the house, where will you live? The steward asked. Myling looked at Xiao Lingyu and seemed to be asking for advice. The house used to be almost empty, but now Xiao Lingyu's wives and friends all lived in it. Myling couldn't insist on selling it. Can you spare one of the rooms on the 3rd floor? Xiao Lingyu thought for a moment and asked. Of course, but it might be a little crowded. The steward replied. It doesn't matter if it's a little crowded, as long as we can settle down. Xiao Lingyu didn't care. At this moment of life and death, I have the help of the 2 of you. If I can survive this disaster, I will not let you down. The Lord Steward, who had always been indifferent, now looked a little touched. He stood up and bowed sincerely. Sir, you are too polite. Sir, you treat me like a teacher. It is natural for me to do my best for you. Myling politely returned the bow. Xiao Lingyu also returned the bow and said, So, we are only short by 4 million yang crystals. The steward hesitated for a long time before he said with a difficult expression, If I sell my 8-faced Nirvana fire sealing array flags, I can sell them for at least 8 million yang crystals. But if I sell them, it will be a pity. Right now, saving our lives is more important. If we lose the yang crystals and magic weapons, we can get them later. If we lose our lives, there is no way to get them back. Myling said. But these flags are the reward I promised you before. The steward looked at Xiao Lingyu again. He could see that Xiao Lingyu liked the 8-faced Nirvana fire sealing array flags. Sir, you must be joking. Not to mention that we didn't complete the mission this time. Even if we did, if you need us, we won't really care about the reward. Xiao Lingyu also said generously. Xiao Lingyu had never been a generous person, but it also depended on who he was treating. Xiao Lingyu would never be stingy with the cultivators who were generous to him and helped him. A real man had to do something and not do something. This was the principle. After all, Gourd City is not really a big city. The treasures won't sell at a high price here. You can take them out and sell them in a big city inland. While speaking, the steward put his yang crystals and flags in a storage bag and handed it to Xiao Lingyu. After the plan was set, Xiao Lingyu, Myling, and the steward went out of the Awakening God Tower together and brought Xiao Lingyu's wives and friends to the 3rd floor of the Awakening God Tower. It was extremely difficult to buy a house in the city, but it was very easy to sell a house. In less than 3 days, Myling's house was sold to another cultivator for 3 million yang crystals. Myling was prepared to find a time to break through to the 8th heaven of longevity when he came back, but he could only put this matter aside for the time being. Xiao Lingyu originally planned to let Myling stay in the Awakening God Tower and go to the big city inland alone, but after thinking about it, he gave up this suggestion. He was afraid that the steward would misunderstand. If he went alone and ran away, wouldn't the steward and Myling lose a lot? Of course, if Xiao Lingyu wanted to run away, even if Myling followed him, he wouldn't be able to stop him. Xiao Lingyu also knew that the steward understood Myling's temperament very well, so he trusted Myling very much. On the other hand, the steward might not trust him, but his wives and friends were still in the Gourd City, so the steward didn't have to worry about him running away. It was also because of this that the steward entrusted such a big matter to him. After settling his wives and friends in a suite on the 3rd floor of the Awakening God Tower, Xiao Lingyu, Myling, and Ling Er entered the transmission formation together. After the formation trembled for a while, it suddenly flashed with a silver-white radiance and sent Xiao Lingyu and the others out of the Gourd City. Fortunately, the direction of the formation's transmission could be controlled. After a moment of dizziness, Xiao Lingyu and the others were already far away from the Gourd Island and were in a barren mountain. This barren mountain should be the inner part of the Immortals' mainland. This was also the first time Xiao Lingyu set foot on the Immortals' mainland. Without wasting any time, the 3 of them flew up high together. They first determined the direction, then headed deeper into the inner part of the mainland. After flying for less than 10 days, a big city appeared in front of everyone's eyes. From afar, the clouds and mist curled around it presented a grand silhouette. Floating Cloud City, an important town in the southwest region of the Immortals' mainland. Not only was it the closest big city to the Gourd Bay, it was also the largest city in the southwest region of the Immortals' mainland. It was said that there were no less than 10 million cultivators residing in the city. Floating Cloud City was built at the edge of a big mountain range. It was built by a powerful cultivator who flattened several thousand enormous mountain peaks. Then, the flattened mountainside was used to build buildings and streets. Therefore, the terrain was extremely high. Looking from afar, the floating cloud city that was several thousand feet above the ground was shrouded in clouds and mist. It looked as if it was lifted up by the clouds and mist and didn't touch the ground. Floating Cloud City also had another name, and that was the City in the Sky. Moreover, everyone preferred to call Floating Cloud City as the City in the Sky. With such a high terrain, naturally, it didn't have any city walls. However, the surroundings of Floating Cloud City were set up with layers upon layers of powerful formations and restrictions. One after another, terrifying lightning and fire continuously wandered within the clouds and mist. It caused people to be intimidated at first sight. They didn't dare to rashly take even half a step into the lightning pool. Because it was built on top of a mountain range, the Floating Cloud City was divided into districts based on the name of each mountain peak. The districts were connected by bridges that stretched across the sky like rainbows. If one were to look at Floating Cloud City from afar at night, it would truly be a magnificent sight. It would cause people to be fascinated. Myling had made a trip to Floating Cloud City in the past. Therefore, the three of them wouldn't be unable to find the city gate. The so-called city gate was actually a flight of stairs that led to the mountainside of a large mountain. No matter which cultivator it was, once they arrived here, they would have to land at the foot of the mountain and then climb up the stairs. At the end of the stone steps there was a rather large plaza. And on the side of the plaza facing the stone steps, there was a restriction light door. The restriction light door was like a ripple of water, allowing cultivators to pass through without being stopped. On both sides of the restriction light door, there were 2 rows of soldiers wearing bright armor and holding swords at their waist. They were all longevity 9th heavenly layer cultivators. Moreover, at the position closest to the restriction light door, there were 2 masters whose true cultivation Shaolin Yu couldn't see through. It was estimated that they were most likely Nirvana Realm Masters. To let Longevity 9th Heavenly Layer and Nirvana Realm Masters guard the city gate, it was likely that only a large city like Floating Clouds City could afford to do so. To enter Floating Cloud City, one had to pay an entrance fee, and the fee was calculated on a daily basis. One had to pay 3 yang crystals for a day and night. If one didn't come out on time, they would be severely punished. When they arrived in front of the restriction light door, they paid 400 yang crystals in exchange for 3 ordinary-looking jade tokens. Only then did Shaolin Yu's group pass through the restriction light door. 400 yang crystals was only enough for the 3 of them to stay in Floating Cloud City for more than a month. If they didn't come out on time, the jade tokens on their bodies would shatter and turn into a red mist that shrouded them. The patrolling soldiers in the city would then chase after them. Chapter 800. Shaolin Yu shook his head and said, "Brother Me, there's no need to go through so much trouble. During our trip to the Lost Islands, we obtained many treasures in addition to the sea beast's life pearls. If we sell these things, we won't have to sell the moon crystals and the 8-faced Nirvana flame sealing array." Previously, in front of the manager, Shaolin Yu and Myling didn't mention that they found many treasures in the Lost Islands. Now that the manager wasn't by their side, they naturally didn't have to worry too much. "That's fine." Myling nodded and said, "Then let's go to Dragon Head Peak first." It took them nearly a day to reach Dragon Head Peak. Then they wandered around Dragon Head Peak for another 5 days before the 3 of them went to Danxiang Peak. The Danxiang Peak had countless stores that sold pills and elixirs. At the same time, there were also many stores that bought various grades of herbs and life pearls. Being in the Danxiang Peak, one could clearly smell the fragrance of pills and elixirs, giving one a comfortable feeling. Danxiang Peak was also one of the most prosperous and lively districts in Floating Cloud City. After all, pills were essential consumables for cultivators. Injuries required medicinal pills to heal, and cultivation also required various special medicinal pills to increase the success rate. Needless to say, there were many medicinal pills with special effects that would cause cultivators to scramble like a flock of ducks. There were many shops that sold various grades of life pearls, but after going through more than 10 shops, they didn't find a single Nirvana Soul Stage Moon Attribute Life Pearl. After wandering around Danxiang Peak for a full 10 days, the 3 of them finally found a shop that sold Nirvana Soul Stage Moon Attribute Life Pearls. However, the shopkeeper of the shop offered a high price of 26 million yang crystals. During the 5 days on Dragon Head Peak, Shaolin Yu sold a lot of magic treasures and cultivation methods that he, his wife and friends didn't need. He also sold a lot of precious herbs and various grades of sea beasts' life pearls at Danxiang Peak. In addition to the preparations before coming to Floating Cloud City, he only had a total of 22 million yang crystals. "Shopkeeper, do you have any Nirvana Soul Stage Moon Attribute Life Pearls here?" Just as Shaolin Yu and the other 2 were hesitating, a cultivator had appeared at the counter of the shop at some unknown time. He stood still and asked straightforwardly. I have one. The white-haired old shopkeeper nodded. I'll take it. How many young crystals? The newcomer was very straightforward. 26 million young crystals, the old shopkeeper replied. The person did not try to bargain. He immediately tossed a storage pouch onto the counter and said, I'm in a hurry. Give me the life pearl. The old shopkeeper didn't touch the storage bag. Instead, he pointed at Xiaoling Yu and said, I'm sorry, but this fellow Taoist is also interested in this life pearl. He'll come first. If he pays, then this life pearl will belong to him. If he doesn't want it, then I'll sell it to you. Fellow Taoist, do you want it? The person asked Xiaoling Yu. Yes. Xiaoling Yu replied firmly. I can see that fellow Taoist hasn't reached the nirvana realm, so you don't need this life pearl. Why don't we make a deal? I'll give fellow Taoist 1 million yang crystals, and fellow Taoist can let go of it? The newcomer proposed to Xiaoling Yu with a very sincere look. All right. Without waiting for Xiaoling Yu to speak, Miling, who was next to him, agreed. Earning 1 million yang crystals without spending any effort. Such a good thing was not easy to come by. Although a Nirvana Soul Realm Moon Attribute Life Pearl was difficult to find, it could definitely be found in Floating Cloud City. Moreover, the price of this shop was too high. The three of them couldn't take out so many yang crystals in such a short time, so Miling agreed without hesitation. The newcomer didn't dawdle. He immediately took out another storage pouch and stuffed it into Xiaoling Yu's hand. Xiaoling Yu was very suspicious because he never believed that a pie would fall from the sky. Although his luck had always been good, it wasn't good to this extent. The newcomer suddenly exclaimed strangely, then pointed at the jade box containing a Nirvana Soul Realm Moon Attribute Life Pearl and said, This life pearl has been preserved for too long. The quality is too poor. I don't want it any more. As soon as he finished speaking, the newcomer put away the storage pouch he had thrown on the counter, then reached out to Xiaoling Yu and said, I'll give you this life pearl. The deal is not done. Return my 1 million yang crystals to me. Xiaoling Yu wasn't someone who liked to take advantage of others, so he immediately returned the storage pouch in his hand to the newcomer. Unexpectedly, after the newcomer took the storage pouch, he frowned and said angrily, Why are there only 200,000 yang crystals left? At this moment, Xiaoling Yu had already guessed that this guy was here to blackmail him. He couldn't help but sneer and said, You should know very well how many yang crystals there were originally in this pouch. It's better if you don't show off your tricks. We're not 3-year-old children. You say I'm trying to trick you? When you took the storage pouch just now, why didn't you say that there were less than 1 million yang crystals in it? Now you've taken away 800,000 yang crystals, and you're still saying I'm trying to trick you? How preposterous! The newcomer said with conviction. Just now, Xiaoling Yu had indeed glanced inside the storage pouch and found that there were indeed mountains of yang crystals inside, so he didn't say anything. He also didn't really count how many yang crystals there were inside. I didn't touch a single one of your yang crystals. It's better if you don't make trouble here. Xiaoling Yu's expression didn't change. You said you didn't touch it, so you didn't touch it? If you didn't touch it, did the yang crystals inside disappear by themselves? The newcomer questioned. At this moment, Miling also realized that the newcomer was clearly trying to blackmail him and couldn't help but regret his decision just now. After all, Miling was a cultivator who climbed up step by step from the bottom and hadn't climbed too high. A cultivator like him only wanted to live a stable life and didn't want to cause trouble. When he encountered trouble, it was inevitable that he would be a little timid, so he said to Xiaoling Yu, Forget it, give him 800,000 yang crystals. It was better to avoid trouble. After all, he didn't lack 800,000 yang crystals at the moment. Hearing Miling's words, the cultivator's eyes suddenly lit up, showing a bit of expectation. What a joke! The more easily we compromise, the more we will indulge the arrogance of such a treacherous villain." Xiao Lingyu's face suddenly darkened, and he angrily scolded the cultivator, who looked as thin as a monkey. "Under the bright sky and in the vast city, Your Excellency is a dignified 7 feet tall man. How could you do such a thing? You really wasted many years of hard work to reach your current level." After all, he was once an expert whose might had shaken the world. He was even said to be the ruler of the world when he was on the heavenly Saint Island in the divine realm. He was invincible. When Xiao Lingyu was angry, he naturally had the dignity of a superior. Even though his aura did not fluctuate, it still formed a kind of expert's aura that made people feel stifled. After all, the thin cultivator was from his own family and knew his own situation. In the face of Xiao Lingyu's pressure, he naturally felt a little guilty and avoided his eyes. "Humph! You took my 800,000 yang crystals and still don't admit it. Just you wait, I'll go find the city guards to arrest you now." After saying a few words, the thin cultivator slipped out of the shop and quickly disappeared. At this moment, the old shopkeeper behind the counter clearly showed some disappointment on his old face. "If I'm not wrong, shopkeeper should already know that scoundrel from just now, right?" Xiao Lingyu turned to the old shopkeeper and asked. His eyes narrowed and his gaze was like a knife. Even if the old shopkeeper's cultivation was in the Nirvana realm, he didn't show any weakness. In any case, in this floating cloud city, as long as the cultivator's cultivation wasn't in the celestial realm, unless they were deliberately courting death, they wouldn't dare to make a move here. "I don't know him." Although the old shopkeeper's expression returned to normal, he still lowered his head. Shopkeeper should know that guy definitely won't go find the city guards. Of course, there are some things that everyone knows in their hearts, and there's no need to investigate further. After all, we weren't fooled just now. Xiao Lingyu smiled indifferently, and the cold expression on his face disappeared. He said again, "Shopkeepers should be able to state the real price now, right? 21,500,000 yang crystals, the lowest price." The old shopkeeper replied, but in his heart, he was thinking that a young cultivator who hadn't reached the Nirvana realm and could take out so many yang crystals must have an extraordinary background, and he couldn't offend him too deeply. "That's an acceptable price." Xiao Lingyu took out the storage pouch that he had prepared earlier and threw it on the counter, saying, "Shopkeeper, please count it." The old shopkeeper's divine sense entered the storage pouch, and after counting for a while, he nodded and said, "Not bad, not a single piece is missing. This life pearl is yours." Xiao Lingyu closed the jade box, added some restrictions, and then led Meiling and Ling out of the shop. Brother Xiao is still the best. After leaving the shop, Mi Ling praised from the bottom of his heart. Xiao Lingyu shook his head and said, "It's not about whether he's the best or not, it's just that I can't swallow my anger. We may not be the strongest in the world of immortals, but we can't be bullied by any random person." "That guy is following behind us," Ling suddenly said. Xiao Lingyu and Meiling turned to look at the same time, and really saw a lean figure hiding in a shop. "He's really haunting us," Meiling said angrily. "Haha, the king of hell is easy to deal with, but the little ghosts are hard to deal with." Xiao Lingyu laughed. "What do you mean?" Meiling didn't understand. "Nothing, it's just a saying from my hometown," Xiao Lingyu replied. Now that the most important task in Floating Cloud City had been completed, and the shopkeeper didn't have much time, everyone naturally didn't want to delay any longer, and had the thought of returning. "There's no rush to go back, let's get rid of that guy first. Although he's a scoundrel, he's not weak either. If he follows us out of the city and attacks us outside, we'll be in trouble." Xiao Lingyu then led Meiling and Ling to quickly walk around Danxiang Peak, squeezing through the crowds of cultivators, and then constantly changing directions in the crisscrossing streets. After walking around for 2 full days, they finally couldn't see the lean cultivator's figure behind them. The shopkeeper smiled and said, "That's how business is. In fact, although the price I offered wasn't high, it definitely wasn't low either. Even if you went elsewhere to ask, it would be difficult to find a buyer with a high price, and it might not be safe either." Xiao Lingyu didn't argue, and he immediately withdrew 2 more leather scrolls and said, "Heavenly Dew Pill and Rebirth Pill. Shopkeeper, please make a bid." "Nirvana Pill?" The shopkeeper's eyes suddenly lit up and he said, "Is it a Nirvana Pill that can allow a nascent soul cultivator to directly enter the Nirvana realm?" "That's right." Xiao Lingyu nodded. Although the Nirvana Pill was powerful, it was very difficult to refine, and the materials needed were also very difficult to find. For Xiao Lingyu, it was of little value. The shopkeeper began to calculate, and his expression changed again and again. He said, "We already have the refining method of the Heavenly Dew Pill, but since fellow Taoist has taken it out, I can't ask fellow Taoist to take it back. I'll just give you 5 million yang crystals. As for the Nirvana Pill..." The shopkeeper pondered for a moment and said, "We can give you 50 million yang crystals." Xiao Lingyu knew that the Nirvana Pill's prescription should have been lost. From the powerful effect of the Nirvana Pill, it could be inferred that its value must be very high. The valuation of 50 million yang crystals was a bit low. However, he had just arrived at the world of immortals and was lacking yang crystals. The Nirvana Pill was useless in his hands, so it was good that it could be sold for so many yang crystals. Therefore, after pretending to hesitate for a long time, he still nodded. Meiling, who was standing at the side, was shocked and had mixed feelings. If the yang crystals obtained from selling the prescription were also given to him, wouldn't he become a rich man in the blink of an eye? Meiling clearly remembered that he had obtained more than 20 prescriptions in the Mystic Maze Islands. At that time, he didn't care too much and thought that these prescriptions were not treasures, but now it seemed that these prescriptions were the biggest harvest in the Mystic Maze Islands. In fact, Xiao Lingyu had long thought that these prescriptions might be of great value. After all, they came from the Mystic Maze Islands, and the Mystic Maze Islands had been formed for countless years, so the treasures hidden in it should be very old. The 7-star pill cost 13 million yang crystals, the Heavenly Dew Pill cost 5 million yang crystals, and the Nirvana Pill cost a total of 50 million yang crystals. In this way, the 3 prescriptions actually gave Xiao Lingyu 67 million yang crystals. Then the 20 million yang crystals, used to buy the life pearl of the Nirvana Soul, Stage Moon Attribute Demonic Beast, was nothing. At least at this moment, Meiling no longer had to worry about selling his house.